Good evening, everyone. We're about to begin the program, but first, we have some special guests that are going to say a few words. So I am Marco Carrion, the Commissioner of the Mayor's Community Affairs Unit. Thank you for coming to tonight's town hall. And first up, I'd like to invite your State Senator, Jose Peralta.
Okay. How is everyone tonight? I am glad that you're all here. I want to thank the mayor for coming out and having this town hall meeting, which is very important for the community. But more importantly, I want to thank all of you for coming out, because this is something very important, and it's all about education, and it's all about your kids. So give yourself a big round of applause for coming out tonight and making this a standing room only. But I want to leave you with a little message, and the message is, don't be afraid to ask tough questions. Don't be afraid to ask tough questions. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is because just like you ask us tough questions, understand that the mayor is responsible, and he has mayor control. So we need to be very, very, very open in terms of what type of questions, because we don't know when the next time we're going to have the mayor in our district. So let's not be shy. Let's not be shy, but let's be respectful. Let's be respectful, but let's not be shy. Okay? Let's show them what Jackson Heights is all about. Let's make sure that the questions are asked, whether it's on curriculum, whether it's on gym, arts, whether it's school overcrowding, whatever you have that you've been holding in for so long, now is that opportunity to ask. All right? So I want the mayor to understand that we are very vigilant and we pay attention to education. So please, don't be afraid to ask the questions. Let's make sure that we ask those questions that are necessary, because next year, up in Albany, we have to make a very important decision. We need to make sure that we're going to have to decide what's going to happen with mayor control. If mayor control is extended or if it's not extended. So understand that. So you guys are going to be the mayor's report card. So I'm going to hear from you whether you feel if it should be extended or not extended. All right? So I want to thank you for coming out. And remember, this is your town hall meeting. Make sure you ask all the relevant questions on education that's necessary, because this is about your night. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Next up, I'd like to introduce your Assemblyman, Francisco Moya.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's great to see such a great crowd here in Jackson Heights to talk about some very, very important issues that we face in our communities, especially when it comes to education. You know, we have some of the most overcrowded schools in the entire city of New York. And some of the things that the Senator and I have been fighting for up in Albany is to make sure that we can bring the appropriate amount of money here so that we can finally get rid of those trailers that we see our kids learning in. And some of the things that we've done is we've managed to do that last year through the referendum that we did through the state with the Smart School Bond Act. And we were very successful in getting that done, because it is now going to be something that we're going to see that's going to be throughout the city. First thing that we were able to do with collaboration with the city and the state is get rid of those trailers at PS 19. That's a big step. We want to make sure that that gets implemented throughout our entire school districts here in Jackson Heights and in Corona as well. But we also have to make sure that we're bringing the technology into our schools. I was just named the chair for Science and Technology in the New York State Assembly. And I've been working with our local principals here in Jackson Heights and throughout the districts, 24 and 30, working with Apple to make sure that we can bring the right technologies into our schools to teach our kids to have access to technology in our classrooms, to make sure that they're learning to the capacities that we need them to be in the 21st century. And so we need to make sure that we continue to fight so that our kids get the exact amount of funding that we see in other parts of our city here in the city of New York. So I'm proud to partner up with a lot of my colleagues in government when we come and make sure that we fight to get those resources in the budget to bring the bacon back home here in our communities. And I'm glad that the mayor's going to be here so that he can hear exactly what your concerns are. Because this is the moment for you to really vocalize how you're really feeling about how education is having an impact on our communities and especially on your children. So we're here to listen, and so is the mayor, but we want to let you know that we go back to Albany in January. We go back there to fight to make sure that we continue to bring those resources back home for all of you. So I want to thank you for the opportunity of allowing us to be here. Enjoy this town hall. It's a great opportunity to talk with the mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Assemblyman. And last but not least, Councilmember Julissa Ferreras Copeland, the Councilmember Finance Chair.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Buenas noches. You know, I'm very excited to see the turnout here today. This is a great message for all of us in government, and in particular to our mayor. I'm a product of public schools, as are the other elected officials. I went to PS 19, IS 145, and John Bowne High School. So what does that mean? That you can go through the public system and become an elected official and become finance chair. So, yes, and we can overcome a lot. But what we are saying and what we are demanding of our public school system is that it continues to give or even improve on making sure that we're giving all the tools necessary for all of our young people. So us being here together today is because we all believe in a brighter future for all young people, regardless if you came to New York last week or if you were born and bred here. So I'm very excited that we're doing this here in the cradle of diversity in our boroughs and in our districts. And I thank the mayor for coming out tonight. And I see a lot of our government colleagues here because we understand that this affects all walks of our lives. So, you know, having all the representative of city offices here is also vital. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember. So we're about to begin. A couple of housekeeping matters. I just want to keep the aisles clear, both for the cameras in the back and for safety. So if we can have folks move up the aisle on both sides, there as well. And we are about to begin. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you, everyone, for that warm welcome. The students are here. They're going to ask you to stand, so please stay standing. You ready?
Good evening. Closer to your mouth. Assembly salute. Assembly pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you. Assembly, please be seated. And let me thank Elias Bazan and Chin Young Lee for the beautiful Pledge of Allegiance that they did. They're both students here at PS 69. And as we kick off this event, let me thank the mayor, the chancellor, and of course, all of the teachers, parents, families, and students here at PS 69 for the great job that they do every single day. Let's give PS 69 Ms. Vasquez, the principal, Ms. Wells is here. And the UFT rep, Debbie Cregan, is here, too. Thank you, Debbie. So let me just start off by saying, first of all, that there's a wonderful new film that's out that's called In Jackson Heights. And I urge everyone to go see it. It is a little self-promoting because I appear several times in the film. But in that film, I mentioned that there's over 167 different languages spoken in Jackson Heights. And I got to tell you, Mr. Mayor, there's also 167 different opinions in Jackson Heights about one subject. But tonight we're here to have this town hall with Mayor de Blasio, and I'm most grateful that he has come out to participate with us here in Jackson Heights. And just one rule before we get started. We're going to have microphones on both sides of the room, so we're going to ask people to line up on those sides, not necessarily in the middle, because if people are in the middle, they're going to block the cameras and the view of the other people. And the other thing is that we're going to ask people to have lines of no more than 10 on the sides as well. Everybody who wants to ask a question, hopefully within the, I guess, almost 2 hours that we're going to be here, will have that opportunity to do so. This is an education-focused town hall, but we will take questions on other topics as well. So, you know, before I got elected to the New York City Council, I was a New York City public school teacher for 25 years. And I have to tell you, those were the best years of my life. I enjoy being a councilman, but I really enjoy being a teacher. The rewards of being a teacher cannot be understated. But Mr. Mayor, you inherited somewhat of what I would call a bit of a mess of the school system. The previous administration really did not listen to parents, did not listen to teachers, and fortunately for all of us in the school system, you hired a wonderful chancellor in Carmen Farina, who is an educator herself. You're both experts. Hello? Both? Maybe I'll use my teacher voice. You're both experts because you both have children in the public school system, or you had, Mr. Mayor. I know Dante has now left for college, and Chancellor Farina had children in the system. And then Chancellor Farina, of course, brings the expertise of being an educator, a teacher, and a principal to the position that she has. And we desperately needed an educator in that position. Thank you, Madam Chancellor. Now, tonight we're here. I want to mention some of the successes that we've had, but also we're going to talk about some of the things that we need to do yet in the system. And so, you know, I believe the last number I heard was that there were over 65,000 UPK seats created in New York City. That is unbelievable. And I have said to the media, to the press, to the constituents in this neighborhood, who would have ever have thought? It had been talked about for such a long period of time, but finally that has been made reality thanks to the efforts of our mayor, and I believe that's going to be your legacy moving forward, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for bringing those seats. My relationship with the Department of Education is such that I have oversight over both the Department of Education and the School Construction Authority, and Lorraine Grillo, the president of the School Construction Authority, is here with us today as well. Thank you, Lorraine, for being with us. And in that capacity, we have the opportunity to urge and to fight for things that we would like to see happen in the budget and happen in the school system. And, you know, I came to being elected by virtue of my activism within the LGBT community. Right here in Jackson Heights, we had a young man who was murdered in 1990 named Julio Rivera by 3 white supremacist skinheads who were out hunting for a gay person or a homeless person to kill. And I dedicated my political career to that cause, to the LGBT cause. And for the first time, because of our activism within the City Council and because of the work that we're doing closely with the Chancellor, we're going to have an LGBT liaison in the Department of Education. I think that deserves a round of applause. Working with the administration this year, we were able to add 80 guidance counselors to our school system. That came out as a result of our hearing and working closely with the Chancellor. We added 60 new phys ed teachers into the system. We worked with the Charter School Center to put into the budget $12.5 million for 30 special ed teams so that special ed referrals can go through the system in a more quick way. The council put in $24 million in enhancements into the school system for things like dropout programs, restorative justice programs, and the Small Schools Athletic League. In the City Council, we passed legislation requiring reporting on special education because we wanted to know how long it takes from the initial consultant referral into special education to the time the child actually gets services. With this mayor and with this administration, we have seen the creation of the Renewal Schools program rather than a receivership program because we know that receivership programs do not work. Renewal programs work in our system. And by putting in additional resources into those schools, that's what's going to turn those schools around. We have a deep belief in community schools. We really believe that we need to address the needs of our students in a holistic way, not in an isolated way, and not just based on standardized testing. And that brings me to the reduction in the use of standardized testing in what I consider to be inappropriate ways. Standardized testing, high-stakes testing, was never meant to be used to evaluate teachers, to evaluate schools, or to base principals' bonuses on those tests. And I used to have a principal who would bring me down and would say to me, Drum, you know, how did Johnny do? And in those days, it was on a scale of 2.1 or 3.2. And he said, what are you going to do to get Johnny to improve? And if that's what you're talking about, using standardized tests in that fashion for true assessment, then I think we can all agree that that's how those tests should be used. I thank you, Chancellor, for making those changes in the system as well. We need to prepare our students for careers in education, like CTE education, but we also need to remind people that education is not a business, and it should not be run like a business. And due to this administration and the work of this chancellor, we have restored dignity to the profession of teaching. Now, much work remains to be done. We still have to fight for over $2.3 billion that the state owes us in CFE funding so that we can do things like build schools here in our neighborhood. We need to improve the dropout rate. We need to continue to work to lower class size. And we have to fight back against the hedge funders who want to get into the education business to make a profit off of our kids. And finally, let me say this. Our public schools are the foundation for our democracy, and we, as a community, must support our public schools first and foremost. Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, we know you have a big job ahead of you. But that's why we're so proud to have you here with us today. We look forward to continuing to work with you. We look forward to the questions that people are going to bring up to you tonight. Thank you very much for being in Jackson Heights. Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor of the city of New York, Bill de Blasio.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. It is a pleasure to be in Jackson Heights. I appreciate the passion of this audience already. And obviously, people here care. You care deeply about your community. You're here because you want to learn more, you want to ask tough questions, you want to figure out how we continue to make this a better and better neighborhood for all. So I want to thank you for caring. There are many people who like to suggest that folks don't get involved anymore and don't care. You are testament to the fact there's plenty of people who do care and work hard to make this city better all the time. So thank you for that. Now, to those who voted in the last city council election, you did well. I have to tell you, Danny Drum is now standing leader in the city council. I'm going to tell you. When I was in the city council, I served on the education committee. Very important stuff happens there. He has been an incredibly conscientious chair of that committee. He obviously, it's a labor of love for him, and we can tell. He devoted his life to children. He devoted his life to teaching. Now, in public service, he continues that devotion through that leadership. I have seen what he does in the community, and he is a living example of someone who believes in New York City as this great place for everyone. You've heard him speak Spanish, first of all. Anyone who's heard him speak Spanish, I know native Spanish speakers who don't speak Spanish as well as Danny Drum. But his love of all people, embrace of all people, the work he's done on behalf of our immigrants, he is an exemplary public servant. Let's thank Danny Drum for everything he does. Now, I think our Pledge of Allegiance givers didn't get all the recognition they deserved because they kind of rushed off. Are they still here? Are they still here? They left or they're here? Well, I was going to make, they have homework to do. That's, okay, Carmen, you are really in character. Okay. Well, they were wonderful. Let me thank folks who do so much to make this school great. I want to thank Vula Wells and Joanne Lyons for their service to this school. Let's give them a big round of applause. Superintendent of District 30, Phil Composto, has been a part of this community for a long time. And I'm going to introduce the Chancellor in just a moment when I finish. And let me do a couple other quick introductions because we brought the entire administration here to be able to answer anything and everything on your minds. By the way, for those of you who are quick on your feet, at the end of the formal meeting, all of these wonderful, powerful people are here. And if you corner them, yeah, here's how you do. You have to get over here in front of the door before they can get out, stop them and ask your questions and follow up on the issues that you care about. Everyone understand what you're doing there? Okay. Let me tell you who's here tonight. The man who really deserves tremendous credit for what he did to create our pre-K programs and now is playing a crucial role in creating our new mental health programs, which you're going to hear a lot about now. Deputy Mayor Richard Bury, thank you. All right, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to call out each name, tell you who they are. I want each person to get up and wave so you can see them. I'm just going to run through them real quick. My counsel, Maya Wiley. Our Community Affairs Commissioner, Marco Carrion. Executive Superintendent for Family and Community Engagement, Yolanda Torres. The President of School Construction Authority, Lorraine Grillo. Queensborough Director of the Office of Pupil Transportation, Frank Johnson. Commissioner for the Department of Buildings, Rick Chandler. Queensborough Commissioner, Department of Parks, Dorothy Lewandowski. The Commissioner for the Department of Housing, Preservation, and Development, Vicki Bean. Commissioner of the Department of Transportation, Polly Trottenberg. Commissioner for the Department of Environmental Protection, Emily Lloyd. The Commissioner of Sanitation, Catherine Garcia. For anyone in this room who likes the municipal ID, the new municipal ID, here's who you have to thank: the Commissioner for Immigrant Affairs, Nisha Agarwal. The Chair of the New York City Housing Authority, Shola Olatoye. Deputy Commissioner, wait, Michael Kelly, you're not Shola Olatoye. You can't do that. Let's try this again. The General Manager of the New York City Housing Authority, Michael Kelly. Now do it. Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Small Business Services, Greg Bishop. Commissioner for the Department of Homeless Services, Gilbert Taylor. Commissioner of the Human Resources Administration, Steve Banks. Commissioner of Consumer Affairs, Julie Menon. President of the Economic Development Corporation, Maria Torres Springer. The first Deputy Commissioner for Department of Health, Auxios Barbeau. CEO of Elmhurst Hospital, Chris Constantino. And now some people I think a lot of you know and really appreciate. Assistant Chief and Borough Commander for Queens North, Diana Pizzuti, NYPD. Commanding Officer of the 115 Precinct, Deputy Inspector Brian Hennessy. Commanding Officer of the 110 Precinct, Deputy Inspector Christopher Manson. And Deputy Inspector and Commander of the Queens North Organized Crime Control, Deputy Inspector Michael Cody. And finally, we have staff here from a variety of agencies, from Department of Education, from HRA, from IDNYC, from Homeless Services, HPD, and from our tenant support unit. So you're going to raise anything and everything tonight. If you have a specific issue, if your family needs something followed up on, those staff are here to help you too and follow up on the issue. Now, let me say something really quick up front about education. Then I'm going to have the Chancellor say a few words, and then we're going to open up to all of you. And I do think we have to figure out where people are asking the questions from, because if they're in the middle, we got it worked out? On the sides. I'm thinking that too, Jalissa. Thank you. All our elected officials got introduced before, right? Good. Okay. First, I think a lot of you know that one of my passions is pre-K. We're very proud of what we've done. Let me tell you what it's meant right here. PS 69, before we came in as this administration, there were half-day pre-K programs. There are now 54 children in full-day pre-K in this school. In District 30, when we came in, 409 full-day pre-K seats. There are now 2,762 full-day pre-K seats. This one's amazing. In Danny Drum's council district, if this is accurate, this is troubling. When we came in, 58 full-day pre-K seats. Is that accurate? Well, anyway, today, 1,466 full-day. It's right? Right. So we are very, very proud of what we've done. If the topic is education, I always say begin at the beginning. We could not change our schools without starting at the very beginning of our children's education and getting it right. We couldn't change our schools if some kids got that early start and others didn't, or if the only start they got was for a few hours and not for a full day. So we said we're going to create a new standard for the whole city. Full day pre-K, every child, everywhere, a seat guaranteed. And as of this September, that became a reality. It's now 65,000 plus kids in this city in full-day pre-K, and now it is a permanent part of our school system. That's a beginning, but let me be clear. I could not be more proud of what everyone did to bring about this achievement. I know how much it mattered to so many parents. It is only a beginning, which is why a couple of months ago I gave a speech, and it was called Equity and Excellence. And in that speech, I laid out a vision of how we're going to change this school system overall. The whole school system, update it, change it for the better for the long term. Because we have to acknowledge, for too many years, a lot of things weren't working. Everything Danny said, I agree with entirely. We need a school system led by an educator. We need to focus on kids and not high-stakes testing. We need to run schools as schools and not corporations. All of that is necessary to make the change. But that's only the beginning. We have to get early childhood education right. By the way, we have to start working even more to reach kids from birth to 3 years old as well. There's so much to do on the front end of the process. What else do we have to do? We said in the Equity and Excellence vision that we had to acknowledge the fact that literally only a third of the kids in our school system are reading on grade level by the end of third grade. And a lot of the research has shown if a child is not reading on grade level by third grade, they're really at a great disadvantage going forward. So we had a simple thing we said. Over the next 10 years, and we're going to work to make this go very fast, but over the next 10 years, we have pledged to invest what it takes to get every child in this city reading on grade level by third grade. Every single child.
Grade.
And it's not an impossibility. It's not something that there was no evidence of how to do. But the decision wasn't made and the investment wasn't made. And we said we cannot be serious about fixing our schools if we don't have our kids reading early. So this is about being honest, and I know there's a lot of parents in this room. As you heard, I just got finished being a public school parent myself. We have to be honest about what it will take to actually turn the school system around. We have to be honest about the investments we have to make. We cannot just talk about it and then turn away. We are committed to equity and excellence, and we chose that phrase on purpose. We said, one, equity. We don't accept the notion that there are quote-unquote good schools and quote-unquote bad schools. We don't accept the notion there's a school you wouldn't want to send your kids to. Think about that. That's the norm in this city for decades. Oh, that's the school everyone wants to get into. Over there is a school, oh, I'd never send my kid there. We thought that was normal. It's not normal. It's not the way it's supposed to be. And when you think about excellence, we got used to the idea that we could get partway to a good education, but not to excellence. Excellence is what you need nowadays. When a lot of us were growing up, you could graduate high school and go right out and find a really good paying job. Today, our children need more and better education to be strong in this economy, in this world of today, they have to be better prepared than we were. And that's why excellence matters. A lot of the discussion has been caught up in, I think, some real mistakes that were made in education policy. Instead of getting back to the core question, doesn't matter whether you like high-stakes testing or not, I know where I stand, but that's not the core of the issue. It doesn't matter whether you like Common Core or not. Again, I know where I stand, but that's not the core of the issue. The core of the issue is our children need to reach a high standard for their own good, for their own futures. But you can't reach a high standard if you're not given the tools, the support, the investment to get there. That was the unfortunate, painful reality that wasn't being admitted, that wasn't being acknowledged. We wanted our kids to go farther and farther, but we weren't willing to train our teachers properly. We weren't willing to do early childhood education. We weren't really willing to do the investments to make sure that they were reading on grade level by third grade. So we've said, let's be honest about what it's going to take. It's going to take a lot. But what could be more important? What could be more important than actually preparing the next generation so they could thrive? I don't want kids to just get an education and struggle to get by. I want them to thrive. That's what every parent wants. We want to know our kids are on the right track for the long haul. So our plan does things like this. So every kid reading on grade level by third grade. Computer science education for every child at every grade level. Why? Because that's today, that's the reality. That's where the world is going. We have a technology sector in this city. 300,000 people working in the tech sector in New York City right now. I bet for our parents out here, I bet you would like to see your child be one of them one day. It's a great growing part of our economy with high-paying jobs. That's what we want for our children, right? Well, if we want them to get that, they need the kind of education that'll get them ready. So they should get the opportunity to experience computer science throughout their entire education. So they're ready. So they have a world of choices ahead of them, not limits, positive choices. By the way, we've had too many kids that took the wrong path at some point in their life. Maybe part of why they took the wrong path was they weren't given enough positive choices. They weren't shown that there was a future for them, that we would invest in them, that we would open that door and make it work for them. That's what this plan is all about. For example, we say that every child should know that they have the opportunity to go to college. College is not for everyone. We're not trying to say it's the only way forward. A lot of kids will come out of college, they may become artists, they may go right into the workforce. Come out of high school, they may become artists, they may go right into workforce, they may do something else. That's great. But they should have the right. They should be told from the day one that if you want to go to college, we're going to do everything possible to get you there. So we announced recently there's going to be free SAT classes free SAT tests. Thank you, Carmen. Free SAT tests for every junior in our high school. Every single one will get that free opportunity. We announced, and this is something I'm very proud of, we announced that every high school, doesn't matter what you think of that school, what that school was good at, bad at, what the history was, every high school will now have advanced placement courses so every child has access to AP courses. Because that says they can succeed and they can go far. We know that if you tell a child from the very beginning how much you value them, and I know this as a parent, I think a lot of people in this room know it from your own experience, but it's something we need to do as a city, it's something we need to do as a society. You tell a child from the very beginning, we value you, we believe in you, we're going to invest in you, you're our future in every sense, but not just words, not you're our future now, run along. No, you're our future. It's urgent. We care about you. We are going to do the things to get you ready. All of these plans are part of creating a very different school system. And I have to note that that school system only works if you are part of it too. Because one of the things that was a problem in the past is parents were not always welcome. Parents weren't always listened to. They weren't even welcome in the building in many cases. It was hard to talk to teachers. My wife, Charlene, and I remember vividly when Dante and Chiara were in middle school, the idea of parent and teacher communication was to 2 nights in the year go to a very crowded building, go to our middle school, and run from one part of the building to another to get our 5-minute appointment with the teacher. And that was considered close working relationship between parent and teacher. We now have, as part of the way we run the schools, a requirement that every week teachers have time set aside to talk to parents, to email, to call, to meet, to engage parents as partners, because that's part of the magic formula. You can't change the schools and you can't change the future of our kids if you leave the parents out of the process. The parents are crucial. I always say parents are the first and last teachers of our children. We are core to it, but we weren't treated that way. Under this administration, parents are now considered absolutely crucial strategic partners in success. So, you'll see all these changes play out, and we think it's going to make a profound impact on the future of our children. That's my overview. Let me say just a couple of sentences in Spanish, then I want to turn to the Chancellor, and then we are going to open it up to anyone and everyone. This is just 3 short sentences. El futuro luce mejor y más brillante para nuestros niños. Estamos transformando el sistema escolar de manera sistemática para asegurar que todos los estudiantes tengan los recursos que necesitan para triunfar. Los padres también tienen un papel importante en este plan y esperamos trabajar de cerca con todos ustedes. Muchas gracias. And now celebrating her 50th year in education, Chancellor Carmen Farina.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, and certainly buenas tardes. I know there's a lot of Gallegos in the audience, because that's what Queens is all about. So to those Gallegos, muchísimas gracias por venir. I want to say that I have a long history with District 30. For many of you who may not be aware of, I go back to the days of Angelo Giamondo. And Angelo Giamondo was one of the first superintendents who actually invited me to come to District 30 to talk about multicultural education, and something that's very dear to him and to me: how do you expect parents and children to value speaking 2 languages? So to the list of the things the mayor said, I also say I'm particularly proud of District 30 for being one of the districts that's taken a major initiative in getting dual languages. You are going to have more than almost any other district in the city. You have been coming to all the workshops. I appreciate it. And it's going to be in as many languages as we can find teachers for, because our crucial factor is we need more teachers who speak other languages willing to come in and work with them. So I thank you for that initiative. I know Philip Compasto has done a wonderful job. You have wonderful principals. And the other thing, you have a very special distinction. You have a renewal school that anyone who walks through it would have a hard time figuring out that it's a renewal school. It looks as good as any other school. I took the commissioner through it last week, and one of the things she said, now, why is this school on the list? So all I know is it takes devoted teachers, devoted principals, and most important, parents who believe in their schools and show up all the time for every single purpose. So thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight.
Okay, thank you, Chancellor Farina and Mayor de Blasio as well. And we're going to start right now with questions. So we're going to ask people to line up on this side of the room or this side of the room, and we'll take questions from the audience. And if the people in the middle, if you can go up that way and around, that would be most appreciated.
I want to add a commissioner here. Where's Fenyoski? Want to also introduce our commissioner for the Department of Design and Construction, Fenyoski Peña Mora. Welcome. And Deputy Schools Chancellors Dorita Gibson, Phil Weinberg. Welcome.
Okay, good. So let me just remind folks, please, be as concise as you can about your question. We don't need speeches as much as we need questions. So I'm trusting that that will be the case here, and I think we will start on this side of the room over here. Yes?
Good evening, Mayor and everyone here. I would like to thank you for coming out to our community on behalf of the Muslim community. Thank you for the Muslim Eid holiday becoming a public school holiday. My question would be, in a city as diverse and dynamic as New York City, with so many different cultures, languages, and so forth, how do you create genuine policy that fits everyone, the whole public and all?
You mean in terms of the schools?
In general, everything, schools.
Okay, very simple philosophy to it, which is we look at inclusion in everything we do. Simple example, municipal IDs. Municipal ID was meant to say to everyone, regardless of where you come from, regardless of documentation status, that you're respected and appreciated, and that opportunity is here for you as well. We do it in the way we approach all of our schools, trying to ensure that all parents are engaged, regardless of background, regardless of language. We do it in the way with all of our agencies. We emphasize that we want to serve people, again, regardless of language. It's a message that's sent up and down the government that this must be a city for everyone. And I would argue very strongly, everything we're trying to do with affordable housing is to keep this a city for everyone, and a city that's this wonderful mix that is New York City, because it will not be New York City if people cannot afford to live here. Thank you.
Okay, over here on this side now.
Good evening, Mayor Blasio. Nice to see you again. I want to first of all thank you for all of your hard work and for being here in District 30. One question that comes to my mind is the need for more schools. And of course, District 30 being one of the most overcrowded, along with District 24. But we also have a need for high schools, and especially in the borough of Queens. But there are very real concerns that a lot of people have putting, say, a high school on the corner. And so it's easy for people to feel like we need it, but not in our backyard. In your years of experience, how can we and the city advocate more effectively to have these schools?
Well, I'm going to ask Lorraine Grillo to come up and join me, the lady who builds the schools. So I don't know about the specific thing you're talking about. Let me just do this first point, because, look, this is one of the epicenters of overcrowding in the city. And we know that, and we have to do a lot to fix it. So what we're doing now, the investments we've made, we have, for the next 5 years, we're putting almost $3.5 billion into building new capacity all over the city. What it means for District 30 is 1,500 new seats coming. What it means for District 24 is 3,400 new seats coming. So real investments are being made in terms of addressing overcrowding. But in terms of your question on high schools and how we're doing that, Lorraine Grillo, President of the School Construction Authority.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Isaac, I thank you for the question. As you know, sometimes it's very difficult to cite a high school. People have a fear of change. I've had an experience over time where we had tremendous opposition for a school that we were building in a neighborhood where there were protests and all kinds of stuff. And finally, we were able to convince them by working with the local community on what kind of theme will the school have? What will the school look like? How will it fit into the neighborhood? And in that way, we were able to convince these folks, and now that community has partnered with that school, and they're just thrilled with it. So it's a hard job, it's very tough, and we love doing it.
And thank you. I would say that's the key thing, is the community making clear what it needs, what it believes will make the school a success, and we will work to match it.
So time for a little commercial advertisement while Lorraine is here. Thank you very much for helping us get that White Castle site over on 69th Street and 34th Avenue in this district. Very much needed. Thank you. And that did come about because of people telling me that site was available, and then me getting a hold of Lorraine. So when Lorraine mentions that if you know of sites, tell the elected officials where those sites are before other people can get to them, and we can possibly get them and put them and make them a school. Thank you, Lorraine. Over here.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Rolando Bini, and I'm an immigrant who lives and works in this community. I happen to be also the director of a community-based organization, Parents in Action. And I want to bring the concerns that I hear from the parents who live in this community. We have an excellent charter school on 81st Street, the Renaissance, and 37th Avenue, right beside the public library. But what will be the chances of having another one? Because there is a great demand in the community, and parents really are lucky to get in the lottery and get this prize. So we are looking forward to, hopefully, that we'll get another one for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. So, look, we are trying to make sure that there are good options for all children. And we value every child in this school system. Vast majority of kids are in traditional public schools. But the kids in charter schools, we're here to serve as well. And we work very well with a lot of charter schools where, excuse me, a charter school needs space, and we think is one that is doing well and obviously respecting the ground rules that we think are important in terms of working with other surrounding schools and ensuring that they are engaging all types of children, including special needs kids and English language learners. We work with a lot of charters that meet that description, and we're able to help them find the space they need. And then sometimes space, like everywhere else, is a challenge for all of us. We'll work with anyone. But remember, at the same time, as I said in the beginning, our job is to lift up every school. Parents, in some cases, are looking for a different option because they don't have faith in their neighborhood school. That is not an acceptable state of affairs. That's not something that Carmen and I will accept. That's why we have a plan to entirely change this school system so that any parent in every neighborhood can feel good about their school.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I want to add something for this specific school. I went to visit. I know the school well. And also, one of the things they requested was pre-K, which they didn't have, and we gave them pre-K. So this is a school, this is a public charter, and they're doing a great job.
Excellent. Thank you. I also want to welcome our Commissioner for the Department of Youth and Community Development is here, Bill Chong. Get up and wave. There he is. Thank you.
Okay, over here.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor, Councilmember Drum, Chancellor. My name is Bill Kregler. Up until recently, I was a 10-year veteran of CEC 24. And I want to thank everyone for coming out. Very crowded here. Reminds me of one of the classrooms in our district. Yeah. Here's what I want to get to you, Mayor. A better cooperation between the Department of Education and the CECs, okay? That's very important. Let me give you a quick little example. We requested years ago that the Pan Am hotel site, along with our Glendale Cooper Avenue site, be used as schools. Well, the Department of Education said, well, that's not suitable for schools. Yet, they're deemed suitable for homeless family shelters, which, though they're not in code or compliance with those issues, but they can be used for those issues and contribute to the overgrowing, overcrowding situation that we have. What I ask of you, Mayor, if you want to keep mayoral control, which I am against, this needs to change, and dramatically in the next couple of years, if not by next year when they vote, 2 years after they vote again. What I ask of you, Mayor, with the Chancellor, is streamlining the process, cooperating with the CECs, listening to them. You know what? Right now, it's just a soapbox I stand on, and whenever they feel like it, they can kick it out from under me. You know, and that's what I really don't enjoy about the CECs. There is no parental involvement with this situation. And that's what I would like to change. And knock out the bureaucracy in the DOE as far as getting things done quicker and more efficiently. Maybe, you know,
Thank you. Thank you. I'll start, and I bet the Chancellor wants to add. So look, first of all, I was part of the previous system. I was a community school board member. And I'm proud of that service on the community school board, and we chose Carmen Farina as our superintendent, which was a very good choice. But that being said, I will remind you, and we're not going to have a back and forth debate. You made your point, I'll make mine. I will remind you that the previous system of governance had an immense amount of problems. Unfortunately, there was a lot of corruption, not everywhere, but plenty of places. A lot of things didn't move. And the things that I have outlined to you tonight, how do we go from 20,000 kids in full-day pre-K to 65,000 kids in full-day pre-K? How do we double the number of kids in after-school programs at the middle school level? Right now, by the way, any parent with a child in middle school, you can have a guaranteed free seat in after-school for your child. That was not the case a few years ago. But you have a right now to a seat in an after-school program for your child for free if your child's in middle school. Those things happen very quickly, very intensely, because mayoral control gave me the power to make them happen quickly. So that's one part of the answer. In terms of CECs, part of why I told you I was a community school board member is, of course, I feel kindred to CECs. We believe they bring a lot of valuable insight, a lot of valuable proposals. I feel, and the Chancellor spent a lot of time meeting with CECs, I feel like CECs are very crucial to helping us understand what will work and not work. So if you're having a different experience, I want to figure out what we can do better, but I know this Chancellor is committed to hearing what CECs have to say. That's not meaning we're always going to agree, right? Because you and I might disagree on mayoral control of education. We might disagree on the Pan American Hotel, which we do disagree on, but we absolutely believe the voices of parents are going to tell us a lot of things we don't see. They're going to tell us, I think you're right, how to streamline and speed up things, because there's plenty of things in the Department of Education that still have to be made better. I'm very concerned, for example, and have been for years, that the way we support parents of children with special needs has to be much more compassionate, much more streamlined. We've made some real progress towards that, but there's more to do. That happened because parents, and I know this from my own experience before as public advocate, parents showed us what had to change. And a lot of us took up that cause, and that's part of why the changes are happening now. So we value CECs a lot, in my view. Carmen.
First of all, I meet with the CEC presidents once a month on Saturdays. We purposely pick Saturdays so it would be uninterrupted. It's an hour-and-a-half meeting. We listen to their concerns. We certainly know that one of the major decisions left to CECs is rezoning. We also have a new head now of the Parent Engagement Office on purpose so that she can engage more with the CECs starting this year. As a matter of fact, I started my first one last week. We're now meeting with CPAC presidents once a month. I meet with every CPAC President's Council around the city. Last year, I did over 40 town hall meetings at the CEC discussions. The reality is we're ready to listen. The meeting I went to this week for the CEC in Bronx, District 11, gave me 3 things to think about, 2 of which I was able to change within a day. But there are other things that people will say that we're not going to go back to the good old days. We're not going to, because they weren't so good. So the idea of CECs choosing their own principals, not going to happen, at least not under us. And I want to be honest, because what we know that some districts took advantage of this, and everybody was related to somebody who got a job. And I think we need to be extremely honest about what was bad and what was good. And we want to somehow be in the middle of how we move forward.
Hey, thank you. Over here.
Jeannie Gosman. I'm a teacher at PS 239. And first of all, I just have to say thank you so much for treating teachers as professionals. It's been a long time, a career changer, and for the first time in 12 years, I feel like I can truly teach the way I want to teach. So I really appreciate that. PS 239 is Police Officer Ramon Suarez School, and it's where you happen to kick off universal pre-K. And it's working out very well. So I was just going to ask you, what is your plan going forward to actually improve it, increase enrollment, while also handling the overcrowded situations, especially in the trailers?
I appreciate that question, but let me just say a quick thing about what you said at the beginning. I know there's a lot of teachers here tonight. I was, as a public school parent, I was very troubled that teachers were not being respected. And so then, are you surprised if teachers do not feel respected, they're not being given enough professional training opportunities, they're not being given the foundation for success, which I think is providing early childhood education for all children? If you look at all the things we weren't doing for education, and then if you look at the tone taken towards teachers, is it a surprise that a lot of very good, very committed, talented people decided they were no longer going to be teachers? So we were hemorrhaging talented teachers. And one of the things that Carmen has taught me over the years is there's nothing is going to change the school system more than recruiting and retaining the very best teachers for the long haul. So that's why we're doing the things we do. Because if you wake up in the morning and you feel appreciated and you feel honored and you feel supported and you feel you have a chance to grow professionally and grow within the system and reach higher opportunities, if that's what you seek, you're going to stick around. And by the way, we want you to stick around. We need you.
She's also a math teacher, which we need a lot more of.
We really want you to stick around. So the question of trailers. So it will take a while. We're committed to school by school getting rid of trailers, but we're not going to lie about the fact that it takes a while because there's real physical challenges. So right now we have a $490 million, almost $500 million initiative over the next 5 years. And most of that money is focused on replacing trailers with permanent facilities. It's going to be methodical work. And we have made some progress over time, and our predecessors made some progress, but this is one that's going to take a while. But $500 million is real money, and that's a good, strong start. Thank you.
Okay, and then we're going to go over here.
Thank you, Mayor, for coming. Thank you, Danny Drum. How proud we are to have you as our councilman. Thank you so much. Julissa Ferreras, Councilwoman, thank you so much. Before you came out, we were encouraged to ask you a tough question, so I got one for you. Okay? You have called parents strategic partners in the success of children. However, teachers like me, immigrants like me, who teach fellow immigrants English, who are parents, immigrants who are parents, are concerned that the reduction in funding for adult literacy programs is sending the wrong message and is raising some doubts in some of us, your supporters. We really need you to consider this. Your Honor, I have a dream, okay? I have a dream that every immigrant neighborhood in New York City will have an adult education program where immigrants can learn to speak English and defend themselves with English, not have to rely on translators. Translators are good, but they're not necessarily empowering. And immigrants come here not to depend on anyone, to be empowered, not to allow them to learn English and read to their children and help them with their homework and inspire their children to go to college. Not to empower immigrants and allow them to become an excuse to fail in many cases is a mistake. I think Your Honor is proactive, and I think Your Honor loves immigrants and loves education. We believe in Your Honor. We voted for you. We campaigned for you. But we really need you to consider this. The city is made up of many millions of immigrants who are the foundation of our economy. What is Your Honor going to do to make our dreams a reality? What is Your Honor going to do to empower those strategic partners that you're talking about to learn English and make progress?
Okay, thank you. Come up. Community school. You state the case very powerfully, and I appreciate that passion. I'm confused on one point, because I believe in the power of adult literacy, and I want Deputy Mayor Beery to talk about how we are using community schools, the 140 community schools, as a place to, in fact, do just that, because we want the parents to be able to work with the children on their homework. So the cuts you're referring to, I'm not sure what those are. I'm just telling you, I literally am not sure specifically what those are, and I will happily have us follow up with you, because we are committed to this, but I want to make sure you understand what we're doing with the community schools. So Richard, just give them the quick explanation.
So we, one of the mayor's major initiatives. Hello, is that better? All right. Good afternoon, good evening rather. One of Mayor de Blasio's amazing new initiatives is our community school initiative. We have 130 schools around the city, which are built on the principle that schools are part of communities, and therefore schools should be there to serve the full community. So these are schools that within them have a variety of services for neighbors, everything from after-school programs, vision programs, adult education programs. And the theory is that we know that children who come to school with strong families, who come to school with a strong nutrition program, who come to school with the right clothing, who come to school from stable households, are more likely to be able to succeed when they get to school. So it's one of the many ways that we are making sure that we're really partnering with families. One of the great things that happened this summer is that we actually knocked on the doors of 35,000 families, 35,000 families at these community schools. And we did it to make sure that parents knew that we were starting a new day, a new partnership to work with them. So again, I'm not familiar with the program cut that you're describing either.
And Carmen's going to talk about some of what
All right.
we're doing. But the point I want to emphasize about Richard's role and about what we're doing in the community schools is a lot of those community schools are adding adult literacy programs for the explicit reason, not only that it is empowering and it's everything we value, but we need those kids to succeed, and the sooner their parents learn English and can work with them on their reading and the homework, the better. So we agree very much philosophically. We're going to get you the information. Please follow up with our team on what's happening in the community schools. Carmen's going to tell you more, and then we'll follow up from there. Go ahead, Carmen.
All right, first of all, I just went to visit my first adult literacy program. It's the one here in Queens, right off Tompkins Square. It was fabulous. It runs all day long. Adults can take courses in technology, resume writing, English, and they also have courses at night for those parents, those people who can't go during the day. So one of the things I recommend, if any of you are interested in this, Yolanda, can I put it on, stand up? Yolanda Torres can do it. We can also, I'll have Dorita Gibson stand up. She supervises Superintendent Mills, who's in charge of adult education. So if there are courses you want, one of the things that really struck me when I went to this adult literacy center, that we really need to start using some of our immigrant parents to become our own translators. They already know 2 languages, they're learning that, but the center was wonderful. Like I said, it wasn't far from here. I went to one in Brooklyn as well, and I'm visiting them in every borough. So we do have them. We maybe are not advertising them enough. So we're happy to talk to you about that. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Let's go over here now.
And Yolanda has a list of where they are. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Spirit Molinos. I'm a resident of Woodside, right off the border. Sorry, Councilman Drum, kind of had to sneak in.
We love you too, don't worry.
Thank you. Basically, I grew up in the school system, and I have been working for the school system since 1994. And I started as a science teacher, and now I'm currently as a laboratory specialist. And I have 2 questions. One has to do with the science safety manual. How come our principals and even our science teachers are not mandated to go for their once-a-year training, so that way they can be kept up to date with all the changes that are happening? And also, the other thing that also concerns me is when we have our wonderful ATRs who are floating about being moved from school to school instead of being utilized on a permanent basis in a permanent school. So, there's so many issues that we can talk about tonight, but I chose to choose these 2 particular topics that no one seems to be talking about. And we can't forget that 2 years ago, I believe in the high school that your daughter graduated from, we had a very catastrophic situation that could have been highly preventable. Laboratory specialists have not been issued licenses since 2007, and that is a big shame because they were a vital component to our school system. So thank you.
Well, I think that is a very reasonable question, and I will look into it. We certainly know that happened at Beacon High School, and we did review the rules, make sure they went out, but in terms of training, maybe something we need to revisit and do it quickly. So thank you for...
On the ATR question, look, I think there's been real progress made because we took a very different approach. And we realized that there were some very talented people in that ATR pool that had just been caught in the crossfire of school changes. And let's face it, in the previous approach, a lot of schools were being closed, a lot of people were being phased out very arbitrarily, and plenty of them were very talented teachers. So I think we have done much better at getting those folks into new assignments. I don't think we're done yet, and I don't think everyone is a perfect teacher, but there are certainly, I think we've shown that with a better approach, more people are getting assigned more quickly. Thank you.
Hey, right over here.
Good evening. My name is Samara Kadir, and I'm here with the Drum, Desi's Rising Up and Moving, an organization based in Jackson Heights, Queens. Drum, Desi's Rising Up and Moving. Yeah, we're an organization based in Jackson Heights, and we work to organize South Asian communities. And our question is in relation to school security agents. So under the Giuliani mayoralship in 1998, school security guards were put under the NYPD, despite community opposition to this proposal. And now with the recent assault at Spring Valley High School, where it is clear that cops often do not belong in education environments, would you, as a progressive mayor, be willing to consider legislation that would bring back the 5,200 SSAs under the DOE?
I appreciate the question. As a progressive mayor, I think what we're doing is fixing the existing system. Now, look, the previous approach didn't work on some levels, but it did work on the level, I'm not talking about the discipline approach where I had real differences, but in terms of achieving safer schools, there was some real progress made. And we need to keep our schools safe. Our solution, and you may have seen what we've put out recently, we're changing the approach to discipline profoundly. Suspensions are down quite a bit. We think we have a much more fair approach. We also think we've rebalanced the equation so that the school leadership has a very different relationship with the school safety agents. I think there was too much separation in the past, and now we've created much more unity in the approach and much more deference to some of the needs of the school leadership and the school community. So I think in the name of safety, keeping the school safety agents under the NYPD is right, but I think we've made a series of reforms that will allow for a much more balanced approach. Do you want to add?
Yes, one of my favorite topics among many. We have done a tremendous amount of retraining of school safety officers. Last year, for example, we hosted a celebration, and we asked principals to nominate school safety agents that actually smile at you when you walk in the building, that go above and beyond in working with students. So we try to change the tone, and I will tell you that I see a difference. I actually get smiled at when I walk into a building rather than, what are you doing here kind of look. So I think that's important. But I do understand also the concern that people have that sometimes they act more like police officers rather than, advocates for kids. And that's something we've actually are reviewing. I do meet with people at NYPD, and I think they have taken more of an open stance about having these discussions and working together. Thank you.
And if I can just get a little something in there, too. We've worked very closely with the administration. And by the way, thank you, Drum, for being here. Drum loves Drum, all right? And with the leadership of Councilmember Ferreras as well in the City Council to put $2.4 million into restorative practices in the system. I think we want more, and we're not done, but I believe that the Chancellor also put in over $700,000 in that, bringing it over to $3 million. And so we're moving in that direction of making sure that restorative practices are used in our schools rather than having a police state. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Steve Carpenter. I'm one of those hemorrhage teachers that you were talking about before. I was a public school teacher in Queens for 8 years, and I left to go teach at a private school when I felt just like you were saying, Mayor de Blasio, kind of restricted and unable to grow in the public school system. So I understand that one of your administration's goals is to improve that experience. I'm also a father of a kindergartner who is encountering the same kind of curriculum that I felt restricted by, a scripted Pearson, ReadyGen, Go Math program in his school. And so I'm seeing a little bit of the same thing that I was noticing when I was in the schools with him. So I was wondering if you or Chancellor Farina could speak a little bit more about the specific reforms that are going into making teaching a better place or a better profession in this.
I will start, and I will pass to Carmen, who is raring to answer this question. So she has strong views on the question of curriculum. First of all, I'm going to do an advertisement. We want you back. Come back. All right. That's good. But we want you back. So the things that I think, I'm going to leave curriculum to Carmen, but I want to reiterate, if we are saying, one, we are going to incessantly train our teachers to be better all the time. And you can see in the way we have now organized the week what a devotion there is to professional development. We're going to give you a stronger pool of kids to work with because we're starting with universal pre-K. We're going to invest in the reading specialists to bring kids up to reading level at 2nd and 3rd grade. So wherever you are along the continuum, you're going to be dealing with kids more ready to learn, which I think, I'm not a teacher, but I think it must be more gratifying for teachers to have kids more able to learn and more confident in their learning. We're going to increase opportunities for teachers to work their way up in the system. We have master teachers, model teachers. We have improved the ability of our own teachers to get to those AP and principal jobs, unlike the previous administration that often preferred outsiders. We want our own teachers to go up to those because no one No one is better ready to lead a New York City public school than someone who taught in a New York City public school. So that's a fundamental reality. And what we say every day, that we actually value it and we show it in many, many ways. Now, as for curriculum.
Well, first of all, I think I definitely want you back. But you need to know that a lot of things have changed. And some of the things that have changed are that the 80 minutes on Mondays are also decided by teachers in the building. There's a personnel committee. Teachers get together and decide what they want more of or less of based on the school data. We now have, you have the opportunity, since you're not in the system, to shop for a school that has your philosophy. We went back to Pearson last year and we said, guys, this doesn't work for us. And they helped us rewrite a lot of the Ready Gen work to the point that is a lot more open-ended. We've invested in working with Teachers College and the reading and writing workshop model. Many schools in this district use it as well. We have also gone back and said there is no one way to do math. Go math may not be the answer. From these ladies I was talking to before, they're doing envisioning. Some people are doing Turk. So I think it's a much more flexible system, and teachers do have the right to do this. So my advice to you as a teacher, shop for a school that matches your philosophy. But there's plenty of that in the public school system because we're not lockstep in doing something. And one of the things I think you should know is that we're getting tremendous feedback on our pre-K curriculum. The curriculum for pre-K is all about joy, it's all about play, it's all about hands-on. I go into a school and I see sand, I see water, I say, oh my God, thank God I'm not a pre-K teacher. But that's what I would want for my child, it's certainly what I want for my grandchild. So I would say, things are changing, and think about coming back.
Hey, over here. Hi, my name is Zion Harley. I'm with the Make the Road organization, and our question for you is that the recent data shows that suspensions and arrests have gone down, which is good for our communities. But suspensions continue to disproportionately impact Black and Latino students. The DOE placed oversight over infractions B21, but school districts like Los Angeles, Oakland, San Francisco, Denver, and Philadelphia has already eliminated suspensions for similar infractions, acknowledging that they lead to racial disparities. Will your administration end suspensions with B21, defining authority to address the racial injustice in our school and discipline policies?
Carmen, I'll start and you decide you want to add. Look, thank you for how you started because it reflects the reality. A fundamental series of changes that we can see already. There are sometimes when things change and it takes years and years to show this is happening immediately. The suspensions and arrests are down right away. This was round one. We intend to continue the reforms. So I can't give you a clear enough answer because I actually don't know the specific item you're referring to. Carmen might be able to do better. But the point is, we think for the first level of reform, we've shown real results. We're going to continue to work with a host of advocates and community leaders, parents, students, et cetera, to deepen those reforms. I got to be straight up about the fact that we are balancing real safety needs in the school, but we will not allow something we think is disparity. So that's why, to the previous question on the similar topic, we think finding a balance point where we know schools are safe, but discipline is fair, it's not overutilized, it's not used in a disparate fashion, that is the goal we're trying to strike.
Well, I would certainly agree, and I would also say that one of the jobs I've given my deputy chancellors and my whole leadership team is to go to visit schools that are either listed as persistently dangerous or dangerous and look at those specific statistics. The other thing that we're really zeroing in on, that in the infractions that seems to cause the most problem, is something called insubordination. And working with school principals and working with the NYPD, we're looking at what do we mean by insubordination? And insubordination is sometimes in the eyes of the beholder, and we've got to make that more consistent. We can't judge this child because he has his hat on backwards, and this child in a different school, he has his hat on backwards, so what? So that's where we're looking at it, because we find that it's in that category that we see the most disparity.
A parent of a child who went to public school, and that B21, defining authority, is used to target Black and Latino students for anything we define as going against the restricted order by a staff member in a building. That means seeing a cell phone print in your pocket or having your hat turned backwards. The fact that you just resisted to turn or to take off your hat he'll leave you out of school and just put you in the school to prison pipeline. It makes you more likely to be arrested just because you didn't want to kick up your hat.
Again, what you are calling for is a fair and equal treatment. And what you're calling for is not using a definition, as Carmen just said, like insubordination, not using it in either a racially motivated manner or an unfair, inconsistent manner. We believe what we're doing is very much in that spirit, and the changes are being made. We're not in the exact same place as some of the other cities you named, but you can see already that these reforms are happening. The next phase, as Carmen said, is to look at the things like insubordination and ensure that things are not used against people unfairly. We are telling our principals, we're telling our school safety agents we want a different approach. We're retraining our school safety agents. So in every town hall meeting, people are going to come up in a democracy and demand something. It's every right to do it. I'm telling you the honest answer. We think we're making progress. We intend to do more. We're going to do it in phases. The message has gone out across the school system. But I want you to hear, again, sometimes I'm not going to agree with someone fully, but I think we're trying to get to some of the same places, and I hope you see the evidence of it as we go along.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna
Thank you.
go to the next question if you don't mind, because I gave you 2. All right, thank you. Over here. Thank you.
Welcome to District 30, Mayor de Blasio. Welcome, Chancellor Farina. Welcome back. My name is Deborah Alexander, and I'm president of our Community Education Council. I could spend my entire time touting the virtues of District 30, particularly under our superintendent, and I'm so proud to be a public school parent, particularly under our chancellor. However, as we are the second most...
It was fun while it lasted.
As we are the second most overcrowded district in the city, the number one question I am asked about as a parent leader is class size. I have a third grader and a kindergartner who are packed into their classrooms, both at their contractual max. When this is on the minds of not only District 30 parents, but parents citywide, and is one of the top reasons families leave public school for charter and private options, why have we not seen as a priority any policies geared toward overall class size reduction, and can we expect any under your administration?
So, again, I want you to just take in from this is not an easy subject, obviously. $3.5 billion over the next 5 years for new capacity. On top of that, another $500 million for class size reductions, which essentially means removing trailers and replacing them with permanent capacity. It's $4 billion, and it's not enough. I'm very comfortable telling you here in public it's not enough. I don't have more. You know, there may be a day where I can find more, but right now I don't have more than $4 billion to put into that. It will mean 1,500 new seats for District 30, which by any normal measure would be a whole lot of new seats, except District 30 is so outstandingly popular. But what we are doing on top of the pure creating of seats is we're trying to address what happens in the classroom in a different way that achieves some of the same effect that parents are looking for. Parents want to know that their child is getting the attention they deserve. So when we say, and obviously I was a public school parent for 20 years, when we say, or close to 20 years, whatever it was a long time. When we say, I want lower class size, we are saying, in effect, I want to make sure my child gets the attention they deserve. I want to make sure it's a good learning environment. I want to make sure it's conducive. I want to make sure it's safe, et cetera. One of the ways we are doing that now, I talked about the literacy effort. That's going to be a huge investment in reading specialists. Those reading specialists are going to be able to address individual children's needs or small groups of children, pull them out of the classroom, address them or in the classroom separately. That is going to change in second grade and third grade what happens in that classroom. It's a different way of trying to achieve some of the same outcomes. And Carmen can talk about some of the other strategies. But we do have a physical space challenge. Because even with the investments we're talking about, as Lorraine referenced earlier, finding the places to put the new schools, getting agreement from the community, actually building them, we have a money problem and a space issue that we're working against. So one solution is $4 billion, and in your case, 1,500 new seats. Another solution is do more with the space we have and put more staff on it and more support on it for our teachers. Please.
One of the things that we actually just signed off on 2 weeks ago is that for any kindergarten class that's oversized, they will either be getting a paraprofessional part-time or the teachers will be getting extra relief time so they'll be able to work with small groups of kids if they wish to. So we are seriously looking at it. And I think the other question is also by whose definition is too small or too big, but we're actually looking at that citywide.
Okay, over here, please.
So I didn't mean to go right after Deb, but I have a
Leonie,
similar
I think
question.
you planted it.
My name is Lainey Hameson. I run an organization called Class Size Matters. As you know, Mr. Mayor, smaller classes are parents' #1 priority on the DOE's own surveys. And during your campaign, you promised to reduce class size to much lower levels and, if necessary, raise the funds to do so, and to expand the school capital plan to provide the space to make this possible. Yet no funding has been allocated towards class size reduction. Class sizes are larger than ever, and last year more than 350,000 students were in classes of 30 or more, an increase from the year before. School overcrowding is also worsened, and it's not just in this neighborhood, but last year, citywide, the average utilization or capacity level of elementary schools was at 104%. With more than half of all students in our city attending extremely overcrowded schools. Your priorities, while terrific goals that we all support of expanding pre-K and affordable housing, are simply going to make overcrowding worse. And yet, rather than expand the capital plan, the city cut back on the funds dedicated towards school construction in the 10-year capital plan. And the current capital plan, according to DOE's own enrollment projections, will create less than half the seats necessary to address future enrollment growth and alleviate current conditions. My question is this. Number one, are you still committed to reducing class size and school overcrowding? And if so, what resources and strategies will you use to accomplish this goal? And when will we see progress? And I want to remind you that the city has an $8 billion surplus, and you have the power of eminent domain, which means you can take over any building in the city and make a school out of it. And
Okay. Go ahead. Let her finish. Let her finish. Go ahead.
To form a commission to improve the efficiency and accuracy of the school planning process. Thank you.
Thank you. I knew you'd be here. I commend you for that fact. I looked at our platform language before coming here. I think you've characterized it differently than it was written. There's no question in the world we want to address class size in every way we can. When I just said, though, this is a cold, hard reality. The $4 billion we are putting in to addressing overcrowding and to addressing class size isn't getting us far enough. Now, you could say couldn't disagree more with your interpretation of our quote-unquote surplus. That's just not how we see it. That's how some other people see it. That's not how, and we do a whole financial plan. We do not believe that is a fair way of characterizing it. We have a budget that is built to deal with the fact that if we have any kind of downturn in this economy, that we know two simple facts, and we've learned them the hard way. In the event of a downturn in the New York City economy, and revenues are plummeting, and aid from the federal government is cut, and aid from the state government is cut, we cannot turn to Washington for help. They will not respond. We cannot turn to Albany for help. They will not respond. I have built a budget that protects this city and protects this school system regardless of what happens in this economy. So to the quote-unquote surplus, the notion here is to protect our schools and all the other services we provide. Because in the event of something going wrong in our economy, and that was not so long ago, you might all remember the Great Recession, something goes wrong, we will only have ourselves to depend on. In terms of the resources we have put in, we are very proud of the affordable housing plan. We believe it is absolutely necessary to keep people in the city. What I disagree with you on in terms of how you're interpreting our plans on housing is we're trying to help people stay in their own neighborhoods that are being forced out of their own neighborhoods. That means the very same people who have kids in school right now being able to stay in their neighborhoods and keep their kids in school. And that is a priority, to put the capital money into that plan so we can have that plan. To the larger question, are we always looking for other things we can do? Of course. We're not done. But what we have established as our priorities, we believe are the effective priorities. And in addition to the investment to create more classes, more seats, I should say, in addition to the investments to get kids out of trailers, the things I just talked about, what we're trying to do to make the classes work better that we have, The reading specialists at second grade are going to be a key example of that. That's what we can do now. We will not we will not obviously ever stop trying to address these issues. I'm not sure I want to do a commission. I'll consider that, and we'll let you know.
Thank you. Just a pitch again. One of the things, Laney, that we've been working on in the City Council has been to get the Blue Book Task Force to get a real honest picture of what's happening in the school system. And I want to congratulate and thank the task force for the work that they did, because I think that the outcomes of that task force have been great in showing us the number of where those seats are as well and what we have to do. It's a much more honest view of how space is being used in the schools. Now, is there work to be done? In my opinion, there is. As the person who advocates for that, I will continue to advocate for that. But I want to say one other thing, too, is because when I first became a city council member, there was no plan to remove the portables. And because of the advocacy of the council and because of the work together with the School Construction Authority and the chancellor, now there is a plan. How we find space to put those kids in the meantime before we can get them out of the trailers really comes down to the biggest issue of all. So over here.
Hi, my name is Megan Dever. I'm a public school parent of 3 girls. This is for Mayor de Blasio. When you ran for mayor, you said that you were opposed to high-stakes testing, and we very much appreciated that we had a public school parent as mayor. Educators have been speaking out exhaustively for years about their very real concerns about the very deeply flawed state tests. Yet your administration repeatedly states that they believe in these tests, and New York City continues to be the place in the state where test scores have the greatest weight. Governor Cuomo has said that these test scores should be meaningless for children, yet they are used as a factor in middle school and high school admissions. My questions are, do you understand the real reasons for the massive opt-out last year? And why is your administration's rhetoric so different from that of some of the most respected educators in the city?
Well, I think there's several things I would contest there. First of all, we have moved so much away from high-stakes testing. What I said when I was running for office, I believe fundamentally, we acknowledge that there are federal and state laws that require high-stakes testing in certain ways. We use those tests in a very, very different way than our predecessors. We don't grade schools anymore. We have fundamentally changed the weight that is given to those tests in terms of how we promote kids. We fundamentally changed how we do it in admissions. I mean, the whole across-the-board effort has been to reduce the emphasis in this school system on high-stakes testing. Now, the opt-out movement, of course I understand what people are feeling. I was a public school parent. I had my own frustrations, and my kids had their own frustrations about the tests. And I would happily join with you and anyone to try and change the foundational assumptions about high-stake testing in Albany and Washington. I think you're being a little generous to Albany, because Albany is part of why we have such a reliance on high-stakes testing. So my argument would be we should be resetting the entire equation. By the way, you notice now, as No Child Left Behind is being discussed, that suddenly there's a backing away, rightfully, from high-stakes testing. We should obviously be doing all we can to push in that direction. But here, we have de-emphasized it. We have redirected so many of the previous administration's policies away from high-stakes testing. The opt-out movement, therefore, I feel very kindred with the motivation. I just don't think the actual effort is without consequence. When parents opt out, it's voting with your feet. I can totally understand it in the context of democracy, but there's real consequences. We need to protect the long-term health of the school system, and there's a clear federal rule that if there is too much non-participation in tests, it can lead to a reduction in federal funding. We take that very seriously. Well, we'll let the chancellor speak to this too. We take that very seriously. And I think the more productive thing we can do together is to try and change the underlying policies. That's what I think will actually help us for the long haul. Chancellor.
Well, I think several things are happening. First of all, we have a new state commissioner who really has said this all has to be rethought. She has a task force now. She welcomed parents' input. But I want to say also, as a teacher, as a parent, and as a grandparent, I don't think that assessing kids is terribly wrong all the time. I think test prep is wrong. I think when test prep takes the place of good teaching should be test prep. And I've made it very clear to principals around the city that the only kind of test prep that I think is good is one that starts in February and is more about how long does it take to sit. This commissioner has promised and has already started putting in less sitting time. We're going to have less questions on these exams. We're going to have teacher input into creating the exams. We're also going to be getting the exams back, so we actually get to see what's on them. One of the things that I think has been wrong about exams is that they give them and then nobody knows what they got wrong or how they improve what they don't know. So that's one of the things that we have asked the commissioner to do, and she has agreed for you to be able to go online and see what the test questions were and also review what your kids get wrong. But, you know, there's never going to be a right or wrong answer on this. It's really, though, I believe strongly that one of the jobs kids have to some degree is to go to school and be accountable for what they learn. I don't think teachers should be graded on the results up no more than 30% of the test, because I do think there is an assessment piece, but that's it. And we've said it publicly, and I think we have a commissioner who's working on this and who has agreed to work with us. So I would say stay tuned on this one. We got rid of the promotional policy. We've encouraged teachers also to look at different kind of materials in their classrooms, not some that are ditto sheets and fill in the blanks kind of thing. So like I said, stay tuned. We're going to be working on this.
Okay, thank you, and we're going to go over here now.
Mr. Mayor, Chancellor Farina, thank you very much for coming. Danny, what can I say? We're very lucky to have you.
Thank you.
My name is Harriet Mendlowitz, and I am one of the lucky few to have a full-time position as a New York City public school librarian. And as a librarian, I wear many hats, but first and foremost, I am a teacher. And what I predominantly teach, although there are many roles I have, are research skills. And the word research appears in the Common Core State Standards for English, Social Studies, and Science 80 times. Yet colleges complain that our students are not ready to pursue research when they get to college, and that they're completely deficient in basic critical inquiry skills. So I guess I'm here to ask, why have school librarians become dispensable? And is there an understanding of our value in light of the Common Core standards? And if so, is there a plan to hire more of us?
Well, first of all, let me tell you that as a teacher, research is one of the things that I think I was actually very good at doing in my classroom. I love social studies, I love science, and you can't do either one of those without research. So I believe in that. I believe it's a skill that teachers also need to do, not just librarians. And whereas I love librarians and anything having to do with books, I was very frustrated as a superintendent visiting schools and seeing what I call open access libraries when there was never a child in it. I'm not saying that's you. I'm just saying, well, that's great. You have to give me the number. So I think one of the things that we really have to look at very carefully is where there's libraries, are they being used all day? Are they being used after school? Are they being used during lunch? Went to a great school here in Queens where the principal said, well, maybe I shouldn't tell you this, but my library is open through 3 lunch hours. I said, oh my God, that's great. Because wouldn't it be a great place for kids who choose not to go out just to love reading? Because we've taught reading particularly too much as a skill and not as a joy. So one of the things that we put out this week, this last week, is New York Reads 365. And okay, great. No, but I'm just saying that in the librarian's world over time, because of space issues for a large degree, and then also, and again, this is personal, not as chancellor, one of the things that happened, we started seeing libraries as these double, Lorraine just heard me on this, 2 or 3 room classrooms that when they became the showcase, but then nobody used them. So we need to go back to the libraries that are used, and also New York City public libraries, by the way, are used more now than ever before. So I would say yes, but when used properly, and the other people who should be in our school libraries are our parents. Going back to what that gentleman said, our parents should be using the libraries to use the technology in it to perfect their own skills.
Thank you. Over here.
Thank you, Mayor de Blasio and administration to be here. I really appreciate that. My name is Bibi Hamid, and I'm a volunteer for Siana. It's a nonprofit organization that cater for immigrants, adults, and children. and the funding for that, the contract has ended. We have been on New York One twice to raise money for just the bare operational, because we continue to have immigrants coming into the organization. My question to you is, what can you do to help this small CBO keep serving new immigrants and families and their children and need so much individualized services, and how you plan to support such organization?
Well, a couple of things. Each individual organization, there are ways they can go about applying for funding from the city or via the city council. But that's a specific process. I mean, people have to go through that each year as part of the budget process that's about to begin, and you certainly should participate in that. We believe community-based organizations bring a lot in terms of the ability to provide a service and understand the communities they're serving and do it in the language of the community, et cetera. So we're actually changing a lot of the ways we provide grants to recognize that powerful role of the community-based organizations. But in terms of immediate things that we can do together, Nisha Argawal is here, so I'm going to ask her afterwards to see you and find out if there's ways that we can work together and be of support to you. Thank you.
Okay, let's go over here now.
Hi, my name is Pamela Stewart. I'm a mom of 7. My oldest is 24, my youngest is 7. My 24-year-old is in the Coast Guard, and then I have 2 in college, and then everyone else is in school. Half of them are in charter school, the other half are in public schools. The reason that I'm standing before you, I had like 3 questions, but you've already answered like 2 of them. So my main concern is that me being a parent with 4 children with IEPs, I find that we have to go to IEP meetings. And when you're working full-time, there's a conflict. Now, some employers, you can ask them nicely and they'll say, okay. Other employees are not as helpful because I guess the needs of their business don't allow them to do so. But when I look at the number of people that are in jail, and a high percentage of them have learning disabilities, that concerns me. And with what Ms. Farina and you are saying, parent engagement is important, I feel like if we invested in our parents who have children with IEPs to have time to go to those IEP meetings and work with their teachers, it might make a difference, especially when we spend $40, I think, a day on people to sit in jury duty, and a large portion of them don't even get selected. I think in Manhattan, it's like 1,000 people show up a day, and I think less than a third get selected.
I definitely got the question. I appreciate it. First of all, I commend you. You sound like Superwoman. If you did 7 kids and you had such success, I commend you. Now, to Carmen and a number of key members of her team are here, and we've talked about the issue of how we can work with special education parents better. So what I hear you saying is, what can we do with employers to create that flexibility? Another way to think about it is, what can we do to create flexibility in ourselves to work with parents, schedule maybe different hours when those meetings can happen? So, Carmen, or whoever on your team, how can we accommodate those parental schedules?
Well, one of the things that we've tried to do, but again, it's an imperfect system yet on this issue, is to look at the 40 minutes. September and October of the opening of school be dealt specifically with parents with IEPs and newly arrived immigrants to this country. So if you give me some, I don't know who's taking information, a particular school that you want me to look into, I'm happy to do so, but we should be able to make appointments.
But yeah, I think it's bigger than that. I'm going to be your advocate. And I'm looking to the Deputy Chancellor's and Ursula. Can we have any thought, and if we don't, we should look into it, of how, on a policy basis, we can create flexibility. If an employer will not allow a parent to go to a meeting, what is Plan B that we can offer that parent?
Plan B has consistently been that you can do a phone conference, and the phone conferences, I will put it out there again, but they can be done that way. And the other thing that has come up actually from the CECs that I've met with, they want to know if there is a way to write an official letter that we create, allowing parents even to get credit for volunteering in their children's school. That some organizations allow their employees, particularly the banks, to do New York Cares or Habitat for Humanity. Why can't we do that as a way of getting more support in public schools? But phone conversations, and I will make sure that that gets out more broadly. But
Okay,
that,
I'm going to do one of those mayor's prerogative things. Ursulina's seen me do this before. So I think your answer is fair and just, but I think the question's fair too. Can we take a look at whether there's some new frontier out there of how we could create something different? Because I understand how phone might work, but I could also understand why that could be challenging. Right.
Benefit us in the long run. If we have less people going through the court system, we need less jurors.
No, I appreciate
so we
that.
save
you
money.
front load the money, is
Right.
what you're saying.
Let's follow up and see what we think makes sense, including if there is legislative or other fix. Thank you.
Okay, right over here. Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Osman Chaudhary. I'm on Bangladesh Society Inc. So today I demand to my honorable mayor to need a soft corner. We celebrate every year International Mother Language Day, February 28th. This is our culture. We fight for our language. Internationally, they declare the UNESCO. They celebrate. We have a city park like in front of like Almas Hospital. We want to use the February 20th midnight, like a couple of hours, to allow to us to go or celebrate our International Mother Language Day. And there is needed something. The one build the one monument. They're going to my tears.
Okay, so Mr. Mayor, this is a question about the Mother Language Day, which is celebrated in Bangladesh. And, their language was taken away from them. I relate to it very, very much because as an Irish person, we were not allowed to speak Irish in my country. And the Mother Language Day celebrates the fact that the Bangladeshi people are now getting back their language, they're reclaiming their language, but it's international. And so what they're looking at doing is trying to get some type of a monument either in a city park or on a city street or in a plaza or something like that, and they're asking for help with that.
Well, we're certainly, I don't know enough about it. I don't want to ever lie. I don't know enough about it. But if Danny likes it, that's encouraging, and I appreciate your advocacy. So let's follow up with Danny's help and see what's possible. Thank you.
Okay, so over here.
Good evening, Mr. de Blasio. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Anya Martinez, and I'm in the 9th grade. My question regards technology in public schools. A recent article that I read says that even though technology has been in a couple of public schools, today, they haven't seen much of an increase in test scores. And I was just wondering about that. Like, is there any approach that you're going to...
No, technology, I appreciate the question. Thank you. The technology is, as we know, sadly, been used much too little in our public schools. And as I said in the beginning, when we looked at the situation in terms of what students of today actually need, we found it was far from what it should be. That's why our new initiative is Computer Science for All. Over the next 10 years, we're going to be phasing this in. Every student, as this grows out, every student at every grade level will have computer science education blended into their entire curriculum. And obviously in the process, we'll be putting a lot more technology in the schools as well. So I think your question is the right question. Do we have enough? Are we approaching it right? The answer is no, and that's why we're changing it with the Computer Science for All strategy. Thank you.
Okay, over here now.
Good evening, Mayor and Chancellor Farina. My name is Noelia Nunez. I'm a Spanish teacher for the Gifted Middle School in District 30. First of all, I'd like to thank both of you for making teachers so very important. Over the last 2 years, thanks to the many changes your administration has implemented, we've seen a very positive change in our profession. And I think it's witnessed by the large influx of enthusiastic teachers that are now coming back into the profession. As you stated, and many of us have stated, we do have an overcrowding issue. We have a class size issue. And one of the concerns that our District 30 has is when you do look at these new schools that you would like to build, how do you go about finding the location? How do you decide which community is the one that's most in need for these additional seats?
Well, I'll just say one of the things we found, and we talked a moment ago about this example of the former White Castle site. And in the briefing the other day, we were talking about the fact that there might be a school put on a former White Castle site, and I said, that's sacred ground. Are we allowed to build on that? But but that actually was found by the council member working with community activists to identify the site. So one of the things I want to say, there are many ways to participate in New York City and help us do the job better. One of them is identifying sites where we can put new schools, where we can put pre-K centers. That really does help us because we don't have a perfect database of every available real estate site in the city. We need people to help us do it. As to how we decide what to prioritize, that $4 billion I talked about, how it's going to be utilized and what the vision is that determines that, Lorraine Grillo will explain.
Yes. And as a product of District 30 myself and my own children at District 30, I understand exactly what you mean in terms of overcrowding. We do demographic studies every year. Our demographers, two different organizations, do projections 5 and 10 years out. Then we take that information and we work with HPD and others. We get housing starts. We get birth information. All of those things are compiled. And with that, we are able to look out 5 and 10 years to see what the future will look like in these districts. Obviously, it's been very difficult to keep up because, as you talked about earlier, finding those sites in the appropriate location, of the appropriate size, in neighborhoods where people actually want to have a school. All of those things together, very, very difficult. But as the mayor said, we worked very closely with the council member. He gave us a great suggestion. We jumped on it, and we were able to get that site. So anybody who has ideas, we're willing to listen.
Okay, we're going to go over to this side.
Hi, my name is Sabrina Check. I'm a middle school special ed teacher in District 24, IS 93. And I just wanted to thank you for bringing unity to teachers in DOE again. For over a decade, we have lived under a dark cloud that continued to treat us in a way that made us feel bitter and bad. Now teachers work in unity with our whole school community. As you mentioned before with the parent engagement part, I thank you for setting aside that time for the parent engagement. As a special ed teacher, and it may work out for that lady, we also do it in the morning also, because a lot of our parents have to be at work during the day in that 40 minutes at 2:20, sorry. So we do it in the morning time also. It's an option. We also have PD now, which is wonderful. Every single Monday, we get increased professional growth. We never had that before. We were never treated like professionals. And also, Chancellor Farina, we thank you for increasing the funding for the Urban Advantage in the middle schools. My kids love going on their trips. I'm able to buy supplies for them. We dissected a frog. Thank you.
For many of you who may not be aware of also, the Urban Advantage, I actually started when I was Deputy Chancellor. But one of the things also is that it was the first time that a cultural institution is able to award degrees. And getting the Museum of Natural History to be able to award degrees for teachers has started a revolution in the city so that now Lincoln Center is in the business of awarding degrees for music teachers, and we're looking to move more cultural institutions to become degree awarding institutions so we don't just have to depend on our colleges.
One other point I want to make to the very much appreciated comments of our colleague. You know, it's something about our society. We have always valued doctors, for example. Doctors get lots and lots of continuing education throughout their career. They're constantly getting updated on the latest approaches. They're actually required to be updated. We value lawyers. We may not always love lawyers, but we value lawyers. Lawyers have to constantly update their legal education. We previously did not appear to value our teachers enough to say, we're going to constantly help you improve. We're going to give you the time. We're going to devote resources to your betterment because that means you will be able to teach the next generation better. It will also say to teachers how much we value them and how much we want this to be their lifelong career and how much we want them to stay in our school system. We're doing the same in other places as well. We're doing an unprecedented training effort for our police officers. We depend on for our safety. But before, they didn't get regular updated training on how to be as effective as possible, how to be as safe as possible. So this is an idea in this administration about treating our workforce like professionals across the board and recognizing that is what's going to bring out the best in them. People want not only respect, they want to be invested in so they can be as good as they can be.
Okay, thank you. Over here.
Good evening. My name is Amanda Vender. I'm a teacher at a large middle school in Corona. I teach English as a new language, and I'm a parent of 2 elementary school kids here in Jackson Heights. And I know that you've spoken about the reduced focus on testing, but I want you to know that I'm really not seeing it in my daily life at school and with my children. My question's really about that curriculum. Our children need a well-rounded curriculum that my colleagues on Long Island and in other parts of the state have. The kids have gym every day and a rich arts curriculum. But our public schools are not following the state mandates with regard to arts and PE instruction. President Obama said there should be no more than 2% of school time spent on testing, yet in this since school started, I've spent 30% of my time giving pre-tests and post-tests. And descriptive paragraphs and informational paragraphs and goal sheets for my 7th and 8th grade students, 30 in a class of L's in a class. My son, who's in 3rd grade with 29 students in his class, complains of test prep or tests with a frequency that makes him dislike school. He has gym once a week, and he has no arts classes at all this year. No arts at all each week, none. My kindergartner has no free play because the administration told me that there's no time for that. And at the CEC meeting this week, I was told the message was to go to the PTA and the SLT, which I can do, but I don't feel that that's acceptable when we do have laws that protect our children's rights to arts education and PE
All right, I'm ready to start answering. So,
Me too.
all right. So let me separate the test part from the phys ed and arts education piece. So we put in $20 million in the last budget for additional arts education. It is not enough. I'm looking you in the eye and saying we are not all the way to where we need to be. We have started on the path to trying to get arts education to the level it should be at. I agree with you. I think arts education is profoundly valuable for drawing out a lot in children, their commitment, their energy, their creativity, et cetera. So we are on the path to resolving that. A much tougher situation is physical education, where we also invested a lot of money to hire a bunch of additional phys ed teachers. But the problem there is space, and we continually are confounded by that problem, and we need a new set of solutions because the state law is right. We've been out of compliance with it for a long time. We have to get in compliance, not just because it's the law, because it's the right thing to do. And I'm a parent, so I know what the value of phys ed is in terms of enabling everything else a kid has to do during the day. It's good for them on many, many levels, including their ability to learn. Honest, blunt truth. We are somewhere on the path to getting both done. We're not where we want to be yet. Both have very challenging realities associated with them, the most important being the phys ed space reality. On the opt-out, I believe you if you say you are not feeling, I shouldn't say opt-out, on testing. I believe you if you say you're not feeling the changes regarding testing. I would argue a lot of people are feeling those changes. The fact that we're not grading schools, which I think was a very destructive effort, a misleading and destructive effort, and that put high-stakes testing on an absolute pedestal. We have closed that down entirely. We have focused on multiple ways of evaluating a school, and I think it sent a very different message to parents and teachers about how to think about our schools. The fact that we don't have a single test that determines admissions to schools. There's a separate question around the specialized schools, which I think you may know. I would like to change that by state law and not have that be based on a single test. But in the previous administration, there were all sorts of admissions dynamics based on tests, and we don't do that anymore. There's a series of things, and we were able to get, as the Chancellor said, with our work in Albany, and also, thank God, we have a new state education commissioner, we have the flexibility to not keep adding emphasis on standardized testings in terms of how we evaluate teachers. So I think there's a number of things that have changed. On the question of test prep, I'll let the Chancellor speak about the school day and the yearly curriculum. But I just want to argue to you that in less than 2 years, I think that list already shows a steady movement away from an over-reliance on high-stakes testing.
Well, let me be very clear about two things. Anyone who has heard me speak in the last 2 years, kindergarten is play. Play is work. That's what kindergartners do. They can do other things as well. They can be introduced to phonics, but you learn by playing. The same way that pre-K is very much hands-on doing. Talking is important. particularly in schools where there are a lot of L's. How do you learn to speak English if you're not talking all the time about what you're doing? So to me, I would say and I don't mean any insult here, it's a cop-out to say, I don't want to go complain this somewhere. You're not going to complain. This is my recommendation. I say this to everybody. First, put it in writing, because you can control what you write a lot better than you can control what you say. A letter to the principal, dear Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, I would love an opportunity to discuss what the value of kindergarten is. How do you see kindergarten? Make an appointment and go talk to someone, because I certainly evaluate schools. Superintendents have heard me say this over and over again. There has to be play in kindergarten. Not all day, all the time, but it has to be part of it. As far as the arts are concerned, the arts are not a frill. The arts are essential. We are going to see a school like this one where there's a music room and say, I do not anticipate, and again, if you want to send me anonymously your school, I will go visit it tomorrow. I have a tendency to show up when I hear comments like this. But every school should have at least a minimum of one art form, 2 or 3 if possible. All middle schools were very clearly told, what do parents look for when they look for a middle school? And you'll find this interesting. They're looking for enriched after-school activities, but more than anything else, they want to see a band, a theater arts. They want something that's going to engage 7th graders, who are the most difficult kids in the whole entire school system, to want to go to school. And you do that by having a strong arts program in a phys ed. The one thing I'll say, if you're working with English language learners, that you probably also are dealing with Regulations Part 154. And we're working on that one. So I'm saying be courageous as a parent, be respectful. I always told parents if they really wanted me to listen when they didn't agree with me, a lot of people didn't agree with me when I was a principal, put it in writing first, gives me a chance to marshal my thought, and then say, when can I meet with you? So that's my recommendation, but don't stay quiet, because that's how a lot of bad things happen. Thank you.
And Chancellor, you got a big round of applause from Debbie Cregan here. She's the arts coordinator for this school. Let's give her a round of applause, because this is a beautiful school. Thank you, Debbie. Over here.
Good evening. My name is Evelyn Ayarza. I am a parent at PS 148. And I was at the CEC meeting with the parent that just spoke, and I had the same question, but you already answered. However, I have another question. For the after-school programs, in our school, for example, we have around 1,000 kids in our school, but the after-school program only has space for 115 children. Most of our parents work. What happens with the other children that are not able to get a space in that program? What are you planning to implement?
Remind me, which school is yours?
PS 148.
PS 148.
Correct.
And it goes up to 5th grade.
Yes.
Okay. So again, I'll start and pass to Carmen. Look, what we have figured out how to do is at the middle school level. And I would argue, I have a thing I say to my fellow parents. I say I'm a recovering middle school parent, because it's a very difficult time. And so that is where we put our first investment. We said we're going to make that universal. So if your child is in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, there is a after-school seat available to them for free, period. That ideally is going to be, if the program's right in your own school, that's great, but if it isn't, we still have space in nearby locations. That's a guarantee. We do not have that universal opportunity yet at the elementary school level. What we've found is a lot of schools are able to create something that works for their parents or work with other organizations to accommodate them. So if you have a parent who cannot be accommodated in their own school at the elementary school level, what do we advise?
Well, right now, I'm going to cop it out a little bit and say I'm going to suggest you speak to the superintendent, but only because when parents come together and want a solution to something, there's always something you can do. I know in my former life as a principal, one of the things I did is I invited a provider, a CBO, to come into my building, because up until 6 o'clock, they didn't have to pay rent. It was under my auspices. So you have to decide how much space you actually have, how many parents really want it. So I would suggest that you speak to your superintendent and see what you could do.
Okay, thank you. Let's go over to this side again.
Hi. You're going to hold it? My name is Christina Furlong. I'm a parent who sends her kid to his zoned public school in District 24. It's PS 89Q. I think it's one maybe behind PS 19 as one of the most crowded schools in the city. We love the teachers, the administration, the principal. They're all fantastic. And they also get a lot of professional development and are very grateful for the changes. I'm here to talk about, to ask a question about traffic safety. Right now you're taking a few hits with Vision Zero in the media, and Vision Zero started here in Queens when you came here after Noshat Nahian was killed. And 4 children were killed in less than 10 months along Northern Boulevard. Within a half mile of my son's school, there are over 5,000 children being dismissed at the same time from only 4 very overcrowded schools alongside Roosevelt Avenue. You mentioned UPK. Those numbers aren't included, nor are the numbers in private school. It's very hard to get data on the number of school children in a specific area, but in Queens alone, it's over 20,000 extra kids who were added to the traffic pattern when UPK came along. So I think it's important that Vision Zero have an education tenet to it. You have the city agencies, and I've worked with all of them, and the NYPD and the elected officials who work right here. But I feel that the Department of Education has to be a Vision Zero partner and needs a Vision Zero czar either at the chancellor level or the district level so that you can ensure safe pickup and drop off of kids, safe routes to school, collecting NYPD data on the actual number of children injured, getting respect from the parents for the school safety agents, school crossing guards, and more.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to start, and I'll pass to Polly Trottenberg. Vision Zero, look, Vision Zero, first of all, has begun. It's less than 2 years old. We've seen, since it began, a 24% decrease in pedestrian deaths. So we know this combination of tools is working. A combination of lowering the speed limit, a lot more enforcement of the speed limit, and of ensuring that cars yield to pedestrians at crosswalks. NYPD has done an outstanding job at enforcement. Twice as many speeding tickets since Vision Zero began, 3 times as many tickets for failure to yield in a crosswalk. We have the speed cameras in place. We have redesign of a number of intersections and streets. And it's just begun. So I want to argue to you that this is something that, 1, is being proven, and 2, you're going to see a lot more impact. But I think you're raising 2 very powerful points that Polly and perhaps Carmen want to speak to as well. 1, the educational piece, meaning public education writ large, not just in schools. You will appreciate that I was very proud. I went to one of the World Series games, the Friday night game, the good game at Citi Field. I was there. And I looked out. I think it was like the 6th inning, and I looked out, and there's this big green band suddenly comes up around the stadium on the digital display board, and it's a Vision Zero ad. And there were Vision Zero ads on the radio and one thing or another. So we are doing a lot of the traditional public education efforts, but also all that enforcement is public education too. So we've got the nice positive messages, but also people are getting the message that NYPD is there and there will be real consequences. In terms of the schools, also you can talk about the ways we can use the schools to amplify the message, but let Polly and Carmen speak, and then if you have a quick follow-up. Go ahead, Polly.
That's good to see you. Thank you for your leadership. We have talked before in Vision Zero Matters, and I want to echo what the mayor said, which is we're still starting with Vision Zero. We've seen some progress. We're obviously very concerned about TLC. We've all been sitting down, and in fact, one of the things we met on today was to talk about safety education. DOT currently goes into Well, agreed. And so DOT currently goes into about 500 schools a year, and we do that in partnership with the Department of Education. We've also actually started working with Lorraine and the Schools Construction Authority more closely than we had in the past, quite frankly. That is, they do their school designs, we bake in the street safety designs. Our 2 agencies actually didn't used to work together as closely. But I do think, and it's one of the things we talked about, and I'm standing here with Carmen, so I'll mention it, we want to redouble our efforts. We have put together some good curriculum and educational pieces for kids at different ages, but I think we want to make sure we're getting them into all the schools on a pretty regular basis. So it's a timely question.
After school and language classes for parents is also a great environment to teach the parents and caregivers safety education so that they keep their children safe whether they're driving or walking. And there's room for that even in Title I parent involvement money, in after school programs, and with Yolanda, I can't remember her title, but I want to meet you.
And just to say, I spoke with the PTA president at 89 this morning, and we're going to ask the DOT to do a traffic study there as well, because I understand there's been some accidents there or around that school. And we were also successful in working with the principal at PS7 to get some traffic calming measures done there as a result of a DOT study. So because I learned of this morning at PS89, we're going to work with DOT.
Okay, hey, we got to do it separately.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead,
All right, we'll go with this side.
Perdón. Buenas noches, mi nombre es Berta Sitimbay, soy miembro de Hacia ese Camino Nueva York, soy madre de 2 niñas de la escuela PS19 y también soy miembro del grupo de liderazgo de la misma. Nosotros estamos muy entusiasmados con su nueva iniciativa de las escuelas comunitarias. Hemos oído de amigos en Brooklyn. Oh, yeah. I need to.
Do you want me to read it? Or ¿quiere que lo lea?
Lo primero lo voy a escribir.
Ella te lo puede leer para que lo diga en inglés.
Ella no quiere decir.
Si lo quiere hacer en parte para que ellos se lo digan en inglés. ¿Ok? Se lo puede dar a ella. Eso lo lea. Eso lo va a leer.
My name is.
You can do it all in Spanish, and then you do it all in English. I just wanted to see if you wanted to go back and forth. Okay, go ahead.
Disculpe. Hemos oído de amigos en Brooklyn y en otros lugares que están muy entusiasmados con las escuelas comunitarias, pero prácticamente aquí en Queens son muy pocas escuelas comunitarias que tenemos. A mí me gustaría como madre que todas las escuelas de la ciudad de Nueva York sean comunitarias. Mi pregunta para ustedes, señor alcalde, ¿cuál es su plan para agregar más escuelas comunitarias aquí en Queens?
Okay, let me translate that because I think it's easier if I just do. She wants to know, she has friends who live in Brooklyn and they send their kids to community schools. And there are very few of them in Queens, and she wants to know what the overall plan is to increase community schools, particularly as they relate to Queens. Muchísimas gracias por la pregunta. Estoy haciendo la traducción. And I'll defer to the mayor, but I'll also say that we are finding community schools this year almost like a pilot to see what's working and what we need to improve it. But our intention is over time to expand it. La contestación cortita es que este año es un año de piloto, estamos mirando cómo están resultando y esperamos siguiendo adelante que vamos a tener más. Pero cuántas y dónde van a estar es algo que aún estamos discutiendo. Okay.
So just to add, so on the question of, don't go away. so it's okay. The community school effort we think is going to work and we think is going to be worthy of being expanded. But that will take time because the first 130, it's going to take a lot to get them going. So that being said, we're trying to add a lot of the things that people want in community schools into the schools that exist right now, even before they become fully community schools. The perfect world we want to get to is every school is a community school, but that will take quite a while. In the meantime, for example, mental health services are a very important component of community schools. We're about to unveil a new mental health plan. One of the things you'll see in that is more ability for schools to access mental health services all over. We're trying to make sure that a lot of the features you find in a community school, you'll see more and more in any school that you go to. So the vision will take time to play out, but a lot of the pieces that you like in community schools, you will start to see more and more in all schools.
Voy a traducir. La cosa es que tenemos que ver cómo van a resultar y sabemos que partes de algunas de las comunidades, los servicios son más necesarios que otros. Por ejemplo, la salud, tener enfermeras, tener salud mental. Y tenemos que hacerlo poco a poco, pero esperamos aumentar más siguiendo adelante. Sí, el after school lo tenemos en los middle schools, pero aún no tanto. Eso depende en la escuela individual.
Okay, so it is
She asked about after-school programs in elementary schools, so I said that's a school-by-school decision rather than a universal decision.
Okay, it is 9 o'clock.
but the mayor has graciously agreed that we're going to have everybody who is currently on the line. Raise your hand if you're the last one on the line. Okay, there and there. But we need to have you be concise and answer your questions, ask your questions as concise as possible. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being willing to do that and to stay with us tonight. Over here.
Good evening. First, thank you for giving us this unique opportunity to ask questions. My name is Iris Jankelevich, and I am the director of Yes Educational Services. It's a company that provides services to the Department of Education for over 25 years. And we develop programs for parents, parenting skills, violence prevention, drug addiction prevention. So I see lately, the last few years, that we're not enough funding for mental health, for parenting skills programs. So my question is, what is your vision? What is the plans regarding parenting programs, parent involvement? You already asked part of the question about the mental health.
Yeah, I think I would differentiate parent involvement, where I think we have some very clear elements to our vision, from parenting skills. I'm not enough of an expert on that to answer. Maybe one of the commissioners or Carmen can speak to that. But on the question of mental health, again, I won't get ahead of my wife, the First Lady, who's going to have a series of announcements coming up in the next days. She today, and the Department of Health today, announced and published a study of the mental health situation in this city that's very sharp and very clear about how much more we have to do on mental health, including for our young people. And again, in the 130 community schools, as those are developing, all of them will have a special access to mental health care for the students. But what you'll see in the plan as it is unveiled is we are focused on mental health starting at younger ages, because we realize if we can catch some of the challenges earlier, we have more chance of addressing them. I can't speak well enough to parenting skills efforts, but that's how we're going to approach mental health.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go over here now.
Thank you all for being here and focusing on education. Jeff Guyton, I'm CEC 30. You talked about using a combination of tools for really thorny problems, and you've heard many times class size and building schools is really important to us. Lorraine Grillo's team has done an extraordinary job, but can you, as the mayor, bring tools that you have at your disposal to put more pressure, whether it's to incentivize or sanction developers to have more skin in the game? We've got a beautiful example of PS 78 in the City Lights building, and as we build a new city along the East River, we're going to need to continue not only touching her team and that $4 billion, but we have to have developers who are willing to do the right thing and put some skin in the game and help us create schools.
I agree with that, and I think we have a lot of leverage in that process. Obviously, especially where there's rezoning, where the community, the council member, and the larger community in each place where there's rezoning have a lot of input and a lot of leverage specifically. But in any development, we have the potential to get public needs addressed, because there's almost always some kind of negotiation over all the elements that make up the development. And we have actually found more and more developers willing to include schools for a variety of reasons. They recognize it's important to us and it's going to give them a better chance of getting done other things they want to get done. They also realize it's an amenity that a lot of people in their building want. The building right across the street from City Hall, one of the tallest residential buildings in all of Manhattan on Spruce Street, has an elementary school in it. Very beautiful building. People pay a lot of money to be there, and a school is there, a public school is there. So that model is starting to be used more and more. So the answer is yes.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to go over here now, I think. The microphone.
Good night. My name is Marta Sanchez, member of the association Se Hace Camino en Nueva York, a Justice Coalition for New York. I'm a mother of 2 children, and I'm worried about their education.
de que ellos obtengan una educación de calidad.
And I always worry about that and worry about the education and for them to get a better education.
Yo también voy a hablar de escuelas comunitarias.
I also want to talk about community schools.
Me gustaría que los criterios que usted utiliza incluyera más a la comunidad, buscando la comunidad más necesitada de ya sea Corona Queens o Jackson Heights.
I would like that you include more the community in Jackson Heights about the community schools.
Nosotros como organización hemos tocado puertas. Hemos tocado puertas con políticos, pero la verdad no hemos tenido, no hemos escuchado cosas positivas.
We go to many politicians and trying to speak with them, but we didn't get any good news or we don't get any feedback from them.
El problema que ellos dicen que tenemos es sobrepoblación.
They said that we are overcrowded.
Pero yo creo que la sobrepoblación no es un obstáculo de que nosotros en nuestra comunidad tengamos una escuela comunitaria.
Okay.
I don't think this is a problem for us to have a community school.
Okay, I think we got the idea. It's about overcrowding in the schools and working with
And
elected
running
officials.
community schools. And that's just something that the mayor has already said is on a plan, but it takes a while to get the money to do them in all places. But certainly priorities will always be given for high needs district and students in schools particularly that have a high percentage of free lunch.
Okay, right over here.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for coming to Jackson Heights, and Councilman. My name is Len Maniaci. I'll get right to the point. I have 2 children who graduated from New York City public schools, and they are now attending public colleges in New York. I like public. One thing that you hear from teachers often, I'm sure you've heard this, is students, when they come back from school after the summer, they have forgotten so much material because, and it's especially a problem with poor kids. You know, they do not go to camps, they don't go to, they don't go to, get to go to education programs, they don't travel cross country with their parents, they don't go to Europe, which some middle class people and certainly affluent people could do. I didn't realize how big a problem this was until I read an article in the New Yorker, a long article in the New Yorker a few years back that talked about how these kids fall behind year after year after year, and the gap keeps increasing.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. I'm going to turn to the Chancellor. This is something, look, we've begun some efforts to address this. There's no question that for some kids this is a very big problem. For other kids, thank God, less so. So, Chancellor, you can talk about some of the things we've done. Now, we are trying to figure out where we're going with them. So I'm going to caution that that's still a discussion in progress.
It's under discussion, but our hope is that this summer we are going to inaugurate a program called Summer in the City, where more students will be encouraged to go to school during the summer. It will not be for mandated programs. It will be for programs around STEM, so the kids get excited about technology and science. We did it last year as a pilot. It was extremely successful. So our hope this year is starting in 2nd grade, which is one of our targeted grades, that we will be able to offer a lot more summer programs. We're also going to be working with cultural institutions. So stay tuned. Our plan is to come out with this in the first week of January. We're working on it now as we speak.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Let's go over here.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Nina Zoida Palacios, soy miembro del CC del Distrito 30.
I'm a member of District 30, the CC District 30.
Soy madre de una niña, acabo de llegar hace 2 años a este país.
I'm a mother of a child. I'm here 2 years ago.
Le doy las gracias a Carmen Fariña por su llamada robótica cuando se dieron los inicios de la propuesta parental del CC, porque ella fue el impulso que yo necesitaba para inscribirme.
Thank you to Señora Fariña, Ms. Fariña, for your help for the robotic program, and you were my helper, and I appreciate that.
Tenemos 5 meses que nosotros hemos tomado el cargo y no hemos tenido, yo tengo el libro donde nos entrega el reglamento, pero no todo está en inglés, yo ya lo he pedido en español, no me ha llegado en español, estoy caminando a ciegas, no sé el reglamento.
Basically, she's saying that she doesn't receive the information in Spanish, so she's looking for
Okay, we're
the
going to have you
information
on.
in Spanish.
We have put out all the parent information sheets, Achieve New York, in 8 languages. In fact, the rest of the state is asking for our copies of these books. So if you haven't received, and I saw some outside, I think, coming in, Achieve New York City tells you everything parents need to know in 8 languages. So please make sure you leave with one today.
Mhm. Okay, let's go over here. I want to just remind everybody, please keep the question concise. Please. I beg you. I don't beg much, but please.
Okay.
Mayor has been grateful with his time. Let's give him a round of applause again, and the Chancellor.
Hello, Mayor, Chancellor, Councilman. My name is Daniel Danvers. I'm a local 891 member, custodian engineer of New York City. We currently have 238 vacant schools in the system, and we have 348 current listed, certified listed custodians available to fill those positions. I'm wondering to you, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, what is the delay in hiring these custodians to place in these schools? This list was certified in August of 2014.
So we have been meeting with the union and trying to figure out what we think is the best way to improve custodial services for the long haul. So we're in regular touch with the union. In fact, I'll be meeting with the union leadership myself soon. I don't know the details about the lists and how they work. I don't want to talk to you about something I don't understand personally well enough. But I can say, as someone who lived in the public schools myself through my children and as a member of a school board and on the education committee of the city council, et cetera, I value very much the work you do, and I know what it means to the entire school community. So we'll follow up with you and make sure we get you an answer on what's going on with the list. But I can certainly say in terms of how we're trying to improve the work going forward, that's something we're talking to your union membership about.
And also, we have already placed 25 off the list over the last 2 months, and we anticipate moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Over here.
Hi, good evening. My name is Diana Sanchez. I've grown up in this community since I first started school. My parents are Colombian. I was born here. My children and I have been part of District 30 for as long as I can remember. The two things that I'm worried about right now is that the children in, I have currently a daughter in 4th grade. She's in the dual language program. She was receiving music last year, but it was a tug of war between the teachers and the.
Yes. Diana, cut to the quick.
What's the question?
How can we get participation where the students are getting music this year and every year? And also for the high schoolers, how can we not have, at the end of the day, where their students want to wind down, that they don't get their core curriculum during the afternoon?
Okay,
they should be getting a skill instead.
Right. 2 questions, music and core curriculum in the afternoon. You want to see more infusion of core curriculum standards in after-school programs.
Well, I think, first of all, when you look at the scheduling of school day, you can't have half the teachers not working from 1 to 3. So you've got to really look at how many students in a high school, and how we get spread out is a matter of efficiency and how you use everybody. As far as music, one of the things that we're stressing, in fact, we put out grants for it's called Arts Matters, where we have asked elementary schools and middle schools to apply together to have one art form. So if an elementary school has a strong music program like this school has, that there would be at least one feeder middle school that carries on the same program. It's the same thing, that if an elementary school has a strong dance program, that there would be a feeder middle school that has a strong dance program. Keep in mind that we had a lot of schools with no arts 2 years ago. So we're building that up from scratch almost, but our hope is to have certainly arts in every single school, and in the good schools, meaning, the will of everybody in that building, that we have more than one art form.
Okay, over here, and keep it quick.
Thank you for coming to the greatest borough in New York City.
All right.
I just want to say that as we look at the question of violence, that we see that numbers are going down. I'm coming from a target area where there's 340 days with no shootings in our target area. Previously, there was like 17 people killed in that target area. So I want to thank you for supporting the New York City crisis management system and helping us build it. And I also want to make a charge to you that when you stand up and talk about the reduction of violence, that you talk about the anti-violence workers who are out there on the front line day in and day out, taking guns out of young people's hands, going into the schools and working with some of the most challenged young people on a day in and day out basis. We want to also work with your office to do a town hall meeting solely with young people, so that we can talk to those who are being affected by a lot of the policies and procedures, a lot of the young people who are hopeless in our city. And then I also want to ask you that you work with us in getting inside of Rikers Island, because if we have 340 days with no shootings in our target area, then we can have days inside of Rikers Island with no violence, and we've had it. We went inside of Rikers Island on a pilot last year and had a successful summer. And I presented a proposal, and the commissioner and his staff said that it's in the mayor's office, and the mayor has not granted it to move forward. So I'm here asking you to help us push that proposal forward so we can work as a strong partner with you in reducing the violence.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I commend you for the good work, and I appreciate everyone who's done this work. And first of all, I take your suggestion to heart. I have talked a lot about how the city, and we've got a long way to go. Let me say at the very beginning, we got to keep working every day to become safer and safer and safer. But compared to 20, 25 years ago, it's a pretty extraordinary history. And give absolutely the credit to the men and women of the NYPD and different leaders along the way who did different things. But I also say a lot of that story is it's anti-violence programs, it's tenant patrols, it's block associations, neighborhood patrols, all contribute. There's a grassroots piece that was very important in that history as well. So I appreciate your point, because I have said it in a lot of places, but I need to keep saying it. I need to say it more strongly, because it is the grassroots piece that adds so much to making a community safe. In terms of what we could do at Rikers Island, I didn't know that proposal was there, but I'll make sure our folks look at it again. And we want to find ways to work with you. And I definitely want to find ways to get the voices of young people to be heard at City Hall, so I'll talk to you further about how to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, please. Yes. Next over here.
Hi. That was a tough
Keep it
act
quick,
to
please.
follow. That was a tough act to follow. Okay, I'm going to try. On the new school reports, the biggest circle is trust. And regarding the state tests, the test rules forbid teachers from reading the state tests. That alone seems disturbing, that educators can't even look at the very test they are administering to their own students. So I'm wondering if teachers and principals are under constraints in terms of sharing their very real concerns about these high-stakes tests with parents.
Well, I think one of the things that you're going to see under this new commissioner is actually some changes in that. We're talking on a regular basis about when the test is seen. It cannot be seen until they take the test, but similar type of tests, the types of questions are actually going to be now vetted by teachers. So I think that's a big step in the right direction. But certainly send me more opinions, because I talk to the commissioner on a regular basis.
Okay, thank you. Next, please. Over on this side. Yep.
Hello, my name is Carmela Collier. I'm a parent association president at Voice Charter School. I'm also part of the board of trustees. So I know how our school makes, quote unquote, $1 out of 15 cents. Charter schools get less money than the regular public schools. And I'm wondering, because I'm going to say the curse word, the double curse word, Common Core, we're trying to keep everything on track. In a couple of years, I hear that you're trying to make all the Common Core testing on computers. Our school is a small school, and we don't have a lot of the funding for the technologies that some of the other schools have. What are you going to do to help us be able to afford to be able to have iPads, computers for all the kids to do the test on the computer?
Yeah, the notion of doing the tests on the computer is a new one on me, so you
Well,
speak to it.
over time, all schools that will take the test will get the computers.
This
but
city
that's
or
why-
state vision?
This is the city vision based on the state mandates. State mandates that all testing will be done online. We have a plan to do it over time. No one's going to be forced to do this until all the computers are in the schools. Well, that's going to be our job to figure out.
But wait a minute, I just want to make sure you heard that, because your question's a very good one. She said no one's going to have to do it on computers until they have the computers.
Until they have
So in other words, it's a phase-in
Exactly.
that you are not going to be penalized. Until you have a computer, you'll continue to do the tests the way they were done before. Am I hearing that right, Carmen?
That's right. Okay. Correct.
But in the meantime, there is a plan to try and consistently get more technology out to all of our schools.
Okay, next, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Welcome to world's most diverse neighborhood, Jackson Heights. Shagatam. My question was, actually, I was one of the first volunteer you
I
will
have to
see.
say, hold on. This late in the town hall meeting, a guy with that much energy. Give him a round of applause. Okay?
Well, I was doing a volunteer when he was number 9 on the poll, Mr. Mayor. I knew you're a good person. I know you're doing a good job. So doing that, I want to present to you my union button. Says here. I'm going to give it to you in my hand. But before I say my question was two-part. One is for our commissioner, and one is for you. I'm not going to say nothing, council member, because I see him all the time. So, question is, I'm from Bangladesh. What we would like to do is, I'm very passionate where I am from, and we are very close community. We are fast against community in New York City. So what we would like to do is a first ever Bangladesh parade in Manhattan on 5th Avenue in Madison. And we want, you help us and tell me who I'm going to chase out.
Marco
Number
Carrion.
one.
Where's Marco?
And are you willing to be a first Grand Marshal on Bangladesh parade in 5th Avenue on Madison, March 26, 2016?
So the person I want you to follow up with is Marco Carrion. Where is he? He's way back there. Okay, you can't go, Marco. See this gentleman here? Marco, put your hand up. Okay, you'll find each other after. Keep going.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Second one is, Ms. Farina, are you going to try and help out halal food in the school district in New York City?
We're actually looking into that. We are looking into, yes, halal food in the lunchtime. Yeah, we are looking into it.
And or a viable vegetarian option as well. Yep. All right, next, please.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm sorry. We're working on it, brother. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Hi, my name is Kate Donahue. I am the Director of Youth and Family Services at Sunnyside Community Services. We work in District 24 as well as District 30. I do want to thank, I'll start with Councilmember Drum. Thank you for being a great partner to us. Mr. Mayor, we've been very glad to be a part of the expansion of Sonic programming. We have a Sonic program actually at the Boulevard Family Center, formerly the Pan American Hotel. And we also offer a full-day UPK program that used to be half-day. So thank you very much. I do want to echo something you've heard tonight, something we hear from parents all the time, the need for more after-school programming for elementary-age youth. And I do want to ask if it is possible to add more funding to Compass programming and to Beacon. Compass programming, elementary after-school programming, and Beacon programming as well. Beacons are doing a lot to address the need for after-school programming for elementary and middle school age youth.
Thank you.
So let me just say, this is one of the things that, when I hear you say it, it's very appealing to say, yeah, we're going to do that. The problem we're going to have, you've heard this very evening, a series of very powerful suggestions, after school for elementary school, summer programs, obviously what we need to do around class size, et cetera. Just the honest answer is we've got a very intense set of competing needs. We have to make a series of choices. We obviously prioritized pre-K. We prioritized after school for the middle school level. We're going to keep, we prioritize the $20 million for arts education. We have to do more there, more on phys ed. So there will be a series of choices in the next budget where we think will make the most strategic impact. But I have certainly registered, and I will bring into the budget process the question of whether we can get to more on the elementary level. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chancellor? Okay. And our last question, I believe, am I right? Yes. Let's say yay. All right.
Hi, my name is Barry Falk. I'm a longtime Jackson Heights resident. I'm also the mother of a 9-year-old who has a severe form of dyslexia. And I find, in terms of special education in the public schools, we're not serving these children well enough. Dyslexia occurs in about 15 to 20% of all people, and this goes back to what you were saying earlier about getting children to read. Children are not being identified early enough, and this is a really big issue. And I'm telling you, a lot of these kids, especially from poorer communities who are not identified and don't have the kind of support that some more affluent parents are able to give, are failing, and this is part of the reason why you're seeing so many kids dropping out of high school. And going on with this particular issue, if you want to get your child the education that they do need, it's an arduous process, and I think you're familiar with everything that parents have to go through to get their child into a school that is going to give them really the special education in the small, funded special education school. It's very expensive, so most parents can't afford it, and so what they end up doing a lot of times is having to go through a big, long legal process that is extremely expensive, and for many parents, they can't even do it. So I guess my question is, how are we going to fix this problem? How are we going to make it so that kids can really get the education that they deserve and they need to succeed in life?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let me answer the question, and then I'll just wrap up for a quick second. I appreciate very much what you're saying about the difference between identifying a child early on with something like dyslexia versus waiting. First of all, some kids almost never getting recognized or getting recognized so late that it makes a very negative impact. I think the whole theory of what we're doing here is to try and reach children early in every way and to try and engage their parents more deeply. Excuse me, that is absolutely true in community school model. It's true in the pre-K approach, because we know, by the way, now that pre-K is universal, we also see a lot more parental involvement, because pre-K is the point when parents are most energetically involved, when the kids really begin their journey. With what we're talking about with the reading effort and the reading specialists that you'll see in second grade, also a great opportunity to pick up on some of these challenges and identify them earlier. So what I hope we are doing is identifying kids' needs very early and addressing them very early. Whether that's their overall academic needs, whether it is a special need like dyslexia, whether it's a mental health need. It's a very different paradigm, because I think what we've talked about over many, many years was the system was not geared to catch the problem and address the problem. It, unfortunately, in too many cases, was geared to ignoring the problem. In terms of how we work with parents of children with special needs, again, some improvement, more to go, but we are trying to reorient the approach to be parent-friendly. I appreciated the dialogue earlier in the evening about ways we could accommodate parents' schedules better, because, again, you're right, the previous system was contentious, expensive, et cetera. We want to do better than that, and we believe we're starting down the road of doing better than that. But what I hope is, by focusing early, universally early on our children, academically, mental health-wise, special needs-wise, you're going to see very, very different outcomes. A lot of kids whose issues are addressed and resolved early in their time in school so they can flourish thereafter. Thank you very much for the question. With that, you are a strong-willed audience. You stuck there the whole time. God bless you. So I want to thank all these wonderful commissioners and leaders. Some town hall meetings, you all get into the game. Tonight, just to use another Mets analogy, they're like when you're watching the game and there's the guys in the bullpen who never get called in, and they're just spitting sunflower seeds out the whole time, and that's kind of what happened with the commissioners here. But you learned a lot about education, guys. It was really worth it. But again, for everyone, even though it's late, these wonderful leaders of our city are all sitting here. And if you get down here, they won't get away. Give them a round of applause. They're all upset with me because they're going to get home even later because of what I'm saying. Yes, you will. But so that's how committed they are. But look, everyone, I want to thank you for how much you care, for how much you're involved. I want to tell you, Carmen Farina does this all the time. As she said, she's out with parents and CECs and PTAs and touring schools all the time. When we announced her appointment as schools chancellor, she said very jauntily, referring to her age, she said 70 is the new 40. So let's give her a round of applause for the way she approaches things. When I have as much energy as Carmen Farina, I'm really looking forward to that day. And again, Danny, I just want to thank you for extraordinary work you do. So thank you. We are going to follow up on a lot of the issues raised tonight. Again, these commissioners here, folks from different agencies are around on the wall. Anything you want to follow up on, we look forward to it. Obviously, folks from the NYPD, we thank you, and they're here to address your needs. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight.